Everyone's working already.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one of the. That road.
You want
It's
to
like
say
pocket
something?
And you can do the image. Stole it. It's like the island. Between Dirt Road and Old Bedford. Yeah, it's like how we. I can't even install it. Vandalism, please bring on that.
Okay, welcome everyone to the November 28th work session agenda. Those in the room, exits are towards the rear of the building, towards the front of the building. And if you will, please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we get into the work session, share this to the board members. This is the first item is the resolution approving a bid for emergency tree removal. Oh, yeah. So one thing I forgot. So we just came out of executive session where we interviewed somebody for a controller position. And the agreement that came out of that was for us to put together a term sheet to see if this person is interested in the position. Okay. Okay. So the first item is we have emergency tree work that needs to be done. This came to us from our highway department. They put out a bid request, and we have the approval. And if you look at the letter, we're actually going to approve spending of not more than the $59,400 for the tree removal. There's a list of folks who responded, and so the resolution here tonight is to approve this bid.
The letter's requesting more than
It is, but we want to stay in line with the actual amount that we're going to pay. We don't want to increase the amount. And that's the reason why we're approving. I had this discussion with both the highway superintendents here and Greg Pochetti.
And do we have the insurance certificate?
We're waiting on that. So it's contingent on us getting their insurance certificate. We pick up today, we still have not received it. Yeah.
The holiday.
Right.
I'm sorry, could you just clarify that? So in other words, we're approving up to 77.9.
Actually, it's up to 59. It's not going to be the 7.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be the 59.4.
You should have just approved the award of the bid to that vendor who had the 59,009 bid. And if there's later authorization that's needed, Pete will come and ask for it. So the name of that particular vendor is being awarded the bid at that price. I think that's what your motion should be. If that's okay.
Anything to bid to Alpine Tree HMI for $59,940.
Exactly.
It's just a second bid,
Right.
the highway superintendent just routed through his team.
That's the second one.
That's the one you want.
It's the second bid. Yes.
Well, it would be the second one, that's correct.
Yeah, okay.
And provided makes the insurance.
Provided that.
well, what so I'm just, before we get to that, I'm seeing 50 trees at the beginning of the letter, and I'm seeing approximately 70 dangerous trees at the bottom of the letter.
That's 68 trees actually.
That's 60, okay.
And there was a complete visit. You went and saw all the companies came. All the companies walked all the trees, saw them all. They're all labeled. They know what they're up against. It's complete removal. Nothing goes down the dome. Everything is taken out of the dome.
Okay.
That's why you won't touch them.
Right, and the insurance, if I remember correctly from the bid specs, the insurance requirements were quite significant. And
Quite
so
significant.
that had to be factored into the bid numbers that we received.
Basically, that's just.
What are those?
It was like 10 million as opposed to a typical 1 million to, it was 10 million. So that causes if the tree companies don't already have that in their insurance, that may cost an additional expense that they don't typically have, so they have to factor that additional cost for the additional insurance into their number.
Okay, well, I brought this up in the past with insurance, the certificate of insurance in and of itself is not really worth anything. An additional insured endorsement under the contractor's policy where the town is additional insured under that policy.
Right.
And then
The certificate of insurance has to be approved by legal, which usually includes us being named as an additional insured. Typically, that's a requirement of the insurance certificate, which they list on the certificate itself.
Yeah, the point is if we have an additional, I just know how the insurance company stuff can be. So if we have an additional insured endorsement, and God forbid we need to make a claim, the town of Lewisboro could make a claim as an additional named insured under the contractor's policy directly. And go straight.
Correct.
And we have the same rights and obligations under that policy as we would other.
Correct. And the amount at issue is umbrella coverage. It's in addition to their CGL, their auto, workers' comp, and New York State disability.
1 and a 10 on top,
The 10 on top is umbrella.
but 1 and a 10 is what I'm saying. Okay.
Yes, correct. And correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I'll make the motion subject to the insurance certificate being provided and
Approved by the town attorney.
Okay, and not to exceed the 59,400.
yes.
Second,
Discussion, all in favor?
All right.
we need to do
You need to do a roll call, Greg?
Greg, is,
Yeah, on the bid, I would like a roll call if you don't mind.
should we get Greg on video?
You want me on? I'm happy to be on.
Can you, I thought it was disabled on our end, so.
Oh, no,
Oh, there you go,
There you
there you go.
I'm here.
Okay,
There you go. That's good.
all right.
And he's got his guitar.
I don't.
Oh, boy. All right, so we're doing a roll call.
Is that correct? We need a roll call, right?
Yes, on that bid, on the bid award, I would say yes.
Okay, so we'll start with Mary,
Shaw, yes.
with Rich Sklarin,
Yes.
Andrew Rundle,
Yes.
Dan Welsh,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, the next item is, let me just preface in terms of what's going on here with the building department. So we all know that Jeff is going to be leaving us. We have two
Tell
other.
everybody 10. Just let everybody know exactly what it is.
Yeah, so yeah, we obviously we thank Jeff for his services. Last day is Wednesday. He made a decision to move over to the town of Bedford as an assistant building inspector. And in the meantime, we do have folks that are working, supplementing to help us with the backlog. We have 2 people and there's a third that's been helping out with some of the inspections. And then we also have LaBella Engineering, who has done some work as well for us. But in the meantime, while we have these folks who are subject matter experts reviewing plans and providing their comments, once plans are reviewed and they are, let's say they adhere to the New York State building codes and local codes, we need someone to sign off on the permits and the certificates of occupancy. And in consulting with our town attorney, the supervisor can be authorized to do that. It has been done in other municipalities. I know it was done by over in Mount Kisco not too long ago. So that's the resolution would be to authorize the supervisor to sign these building permits and or certificates of occupancy and any other order under Chapter 92 of the town code.
Greg, could you just explain a little bit about Chapter 92 and understand before that this resolution is authorizing the supervisor essentially it's a ministerial function because we don't have anybody authorized or to sign off on a project right now. We don't have a building or assistant building. Can you just go?
Correct.
Well, let me just clarify. So the assistant building inspector is not authorized, it's the building inspector.
Well, we don't have one. He's gonna, we don't have
I
one
would-
now.
Either one.
I'm just laying. We'll talk about the legal aspect.
So chapter 92 is your building code administration provision in your town code, and that provides for the issuance, among other things, building permits, certificates of occupancy, and stop work orders. And being that you have the vacancy at building inspector at this point, which would be the only title generally empowered to do so, and you don't have an acting building inspector that you could elevate from an existing assistant position. Chapter 29 or section 29 of the town code has a provision of the town law of the state of New York, has a provision that basically allows the supervisor to exercise any other powers deemed necessary for the administration of town business when authorized by the town board. And this is for Supervisor Gonsalves to sign building permits and COs or stop work orders, not to perform substantive reviews, technical reviews, anything to that effect, when the consultants that you've engaged for those purposes are satisfied that any particular application conforms with New York State law. Then they can present those applications to Supervisor Gonsalves for signature.
Could you just explain, thanks for that. Could you just follow up and explain what we have by way of the substantive reviews that can take place and how that complies with applicable law?
The substantive reviews, New York State Building Code, New York State Fire Code, and your own local building code, the stretch code that you've just enacted. And that is all going to be done by.
We didn't
act as stretch code.
We didn't do stretch?
Don't rub it in, okay?
I'm sorry, Dan. I knew we went down the road. I thought we didn't. I apologize. So they are performing the reviews for conformance with all applicable state, federal, state, county, and local regulatory components. And if they're satisfied that the particular applications meet those, then they can present the proposed or draft certificate of occupancy or building permit, or in the case of a stop work order where there's something that's not in conformance, to the supervisor for signature. And this that's section 2916 of New York State town law. Supervisor has any other power or authority in the administration supervision of town government as provided by resolution of the town board. And in your situation, you're at a standstill in your building department. You're trying to fill the BI position now again, and it's really something that needs to be done so that permitting and review the backlog can be relieved and ultimately move forward.
And is there a last question? Thank you, that was clear. So is there a threshold requirement for the people who are helping us out to ensure New York State Building Code compliance before it's then signed off on by the supervisor have to meet? In other words, I just want to ensure that the people we have reviewing things and helping us out for the town have the sufficient substantive knowledge in order to do that, that we're, from a liability standpoint, we're doing what we have to do in a substantive way and is a precursor to the supervisor authorized.
Well, we vetted all three of the contractors, and all three of them are familiar with the provisions of the New York State Building Code and the Fire Code and our local code, and they carry their own coverage. They're obviously contractors. So
Greg, to be clear, Tony's not going out and performing inspections. No one's asking him to do that. No one's asking him to review plans. That's not happening. So what is happening is that the building department is trying to continue to move along. Inspections are going to be done. Permits are going to be, applications are going to be reviewed. And basically what typically happens is that the building inspector is the one that is the final signature that allows the things to move forward. So the underlying review is still being done, and Tony's just putting the final stamp of approval on so our residents can move ahead with their projects until such time as we have a full-time building inspector, which we are hopeful will be the beginning of the year at the latest, correct?
At the latest, that's a plan, yeah. And just so I think, was that a question or a clarification?
Clarification.
Okay.
So
It was a leading question. I think you
Yes.
answered the question, yes.
Yeah. So and just so everyone is aware, with the current building inspector, so when we gave Jeff the position as to head the office, we had to go out and canvass. We went through the civil service process. We obtained a list from Westchester County, and Jeff was on that list. So it was him and two other people that responded favorably to being considered for the position. The person that we are now trying to get over is the person that was the number two behind Jeff in terms of, our preference was, of course, to give Jeff that lead job, which we did. So now we're going after the person who was number two on our short list.
Reaching down further on the civil service list.
He was actually at the top. Well, you're right. So he was further down on the list, but reachable. And he was willing to come over. We tried to get the position to Jeff. This person is still interested in coming over. We tried to do a transfer in consulting with the county. He's coming over from Dutchess County. In consultation with Westchester County, they said that we could make the transfer process work. But then as of a week ago Friday, Westchester County said the transfer process is not going to work because of differences in the job description between Dutchess County and Westchester County and the minimum requirements. So what we did was, what they said was you have to request a new list. You have to go through the canvas process again. So we got that list on Wednesday of last week, and today the letters went out to 10, 11 candidates that are on that list. And the hopes is that we will be able to reach the person that's interested in coming over.
So we tried to go a shorter route, and we were told that we couldn't go the shorter route. So now we have to start from scratch and begin the canvassing from the beginning. So therefore, it's a longer process to get where we need to go. So the game plan is that we will still be able to hire the same person, but we're still required to send out the notices and canvass the other people on the list and give them an opportunity to say that they're not interested before we get to him. So we're anticipating the same thing is going to happen, but we still have to go through the motions.
We have to redo the procedural steps under the Westchester County Civil Service Director.
Correct. Yes,
Because of the civil service position.
that is correct. Right. And we can't just bring them on board. That has happened in the past, but it's not recommended that you not hire somebody unless they've gone through this canvassing. Municipality goes through the canvassing process. Yeah. Let me just make sure. Hold on a second. There's some echo. That's not. So that's the process there. So hopefully this window where we won't have a building inspector is going to be short to Andrew's point, be by the first of the year. But in the meantime, we'll continue doing the plan reviews and keep chipping away at the existing applications.
So we have to motion.
Someone has to motion.
Not Tony.
So who wants to make the motion?
Can I suggest the motion for adoption? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Motion authorizing Supervisor Gonsalves to sign building permits and or certificate of occupancy or any other order under Chapter 92 of the Town Code upon confirmation from the town's current plan review consultants that such actions are warranted, limited to such time as the office of the building inspector remaining vacant. And you can adopt that. And
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I guess I'll abstain.
you probably should.
Okay, so moving on, I do have an add-on, and it is related to the building department. I just passed around. I emailed it as well to the board. We had reviewed a prior proposal. Lavelle Engineering has done plan reviews for us. They've done them successfully and very quickly. They did one for Mercedes. They did another whole house plan. I think they're reviewing a third, and these are being paid on a per project basis. No, the ones that we're doing are per, depending on the size of the project. So this agreement, the board had seen a prior version of this agreement that was only for plan reviews, where they charge an amount of, there's a table there, but it's like $5 per $1,000 in the construction value that's submitted with the application. I had them go back, I had discussed this with them, but it wasn't in the original proposal. This updated proposal includes inspections as well, where they will do inspections, perform inspections for us. Labella does this for Pauling. In fact, they are the building department for the town of Pauling. So they do it all. They do this work for the city of New Rochelle, city of Yonkers, and Rye, town of Rye as well. To a certain extent, they do plan reviews, inspections, especially the larger projects. So what I'd like for the board's approval here is to move forward with the proposal from Labella to have them assist us. And we can throw as much work at them as we want or as little work. And the advantage we have with using them is that they have a lot of people that they can throw at projects, so we can provide them applications as they come in. We can even go as far as giving them access to our, I forget the name of the platform that we use for the online applications.
Municipal?
It's not Municity, there's another one, City Square. And with City Square, and I guess this is a question for Greg. If the board approves this tonight, Greg, would we have an issue with giving them access? Because what happens is an application comes in electronically through the City Square portal, and then Kara assigns it to an email, sends it to an email. For example, it would be Jeff's email. Can we send that to an email over at Labella? And in this way, they get hold of that application, and they start working on it.
But forwarding the submission, not giving them their own access, private access to our system.
It would be private access to our system. They get an email notification, and then they have to go into our system, the City Square system. In fact, the person at Labella, because he was asking whether it's a cloud-based system or one that's in our network. I'm not sure if we're using a cloud-based, so I had him. He already has a working relationship with Kara, our admin person.
If it's not, then Jeff, Joel could set up a VPN or something to.
Correct.
get it.
Right.
Or a guest,
So I
a
think,
guest password, a guest account.
well, yeah, I mean.
It would be an account, right? I guess.
It would
account
have to
possibly.
be specific to the individual using it for, and so it seemed to me that there should be some format of a data security agreement that it could be put together.
Okay, and he said, so in my conversation with Labella, they've done this before, and usually it's the IT folks from both companies hash this out. So if that's something that but I'll get more. I mean, we don't need to make a decision. It was just a question that, well, it's top of mind that I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works most efficiently, as
Right.
long as we're staying on the
And
right,
securely.
the right
Right.
side of the security
Right.
question. Yeah.
The professional services agreement, which was distributed just now. November 23, 2022.
That's when I reviewed.
References in exhibit A with terms and conditions. And in the terms and conditions, it doesn't itemize what the work is going to be done and the cost. It has hourly rates, which also says 2022 billing rate for different positions. Doesn't, at least what I'm seeing in front of me. Doesn't indicate what the cost is going to be and who's going to be assigned to a particular task and what the total cost is going to be.
I think
Well,
the costs are all based on the front end
Table 1 and table 2.
piece, and that the terms and conditions include that stuff, just as a matter of boilerplate, and I'm guessing.
Well, it doesn't incorporate that. The professional services agreement references exhibit A as the terms and conditions which is being signed.
It's not incorporating the
No,
front
Doesn't-
end here, the actual proposal.
it says the copy is provided in accordance with the terms and conditions. This contract is attached as exhibit A, which is the terms and conditions, which includes also hourly rates.
Well, it needs to reference the front end where the scope of services.
Well, the terms of condition apply, not the hourly rates. The hourly rates are not part of that.
Well, we can, if we approve it, we can just make
We
it
can- I
subject
can-
to a final
Yeah.
We
cleanup.
doesn't have the cost. What's costing us? Because, I mean,
That's
it is.
That's this part.
Table one and table
But
two.
you're right in saying if it's not referenced there, then that's kind of some loop that needs to be closed.
All right, so we can authorize the supervisor to sign the contract with them, subject to approval by our town attorney to incorporate the fact that the terms and conditions have to incorporate the fee schedule outlined in tables 1, 2, and 3.
Does that sound good, Greg?
That's fine.
well, it doesn't also, is this cost being frozen? Because it's a 2002 billing rate, which has another,
We're not
Well, we-
using those.
Well, we're still in 2022.
right, those 2023, the billing rate's going to change.
But we're signing it in 2022, so that has to be.
That has to be the rate.
No, but it doesn't necessarily, that's for 2022. When the calendar year changes, does that give them the opportunity to increase the rates?
It doesn't give them the opportunity to unilaterally do it. We're signing with what supervisors are going to sign are those rates on those schedules. Okay, if they want to increase the rates at some point during the course of the agreement term, they're going to have to come back for additional approval. That would be my position on that.
All right, I just don't want to get, effective January 1, we're increasing our rates by the following schedule.
Yeah, and then you can consider whether you want to agree with that.
Right, I just want to make sure we have that.
And
locked in.
typically, it's incorporated into the body of the agreement that after a certain period of time that subject to the rates increasing by a certain percentage the following year. It's not listed in here. So
Correct.
they can't independently determine that.
Yeah, there's no term in the agreement.
So I'm seconding your resolution.
Okay.
Your second discussion?
Roll call. I mean,
Roll
roll call that,
call.
please.
No.
Shaw, yes.
We get the discussion. Okay, so I see that there's a suspension provision. But we have a 7-day upon 7 days written.
Cancellation.
Yeah. Call suspend.
And again, we're not obligated to send them anything.
Yeah, and there's no term, so you could
Yeah.
send them nothing or tell them, in a week or in a month that you're no longer interested in doing any business under the agreement anyway.
Right.
Gives you options.
So who's going to make the decision as to what's gets sent to them or while this is?
Right, so when applications come in, it'll go to them.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is
Yeah.
right now, in other words, you're going to make the determination as to what goes to who, because we don't have a building inspector, we don't have
Right.
an acting building inspector.
So
So who's making the?
So today,
Who's making the determination as to the allocation of work between the people we have on staff
right,
and LaBella?
so today Kara allocates like the digital stuff that comes in, goes to Jeff, and then Jeff makes a decision whether he wants to do it or he wants to give it to one of the third-party guys.
Right, but now as of
Yeah.
Wednesday, we have a different situation. So that's my point.
Yeah, so at this point, I would say if the third-party guy is in the office, we have a guy that comes in, he takes a box loaded with applications, first in, first out.
Well, who's going to make that decision?
I would say Kara, and if she needs assistance from me, I'm available to help her.
And then
Right now, she's taking applications, and she's putting them on a pile for Jeff to disseminate, right? So she's gonna leave them in a pile, and then whoever, if
Now-
we want to give them all to LaBella, we can do that.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm asking, right, the building inspector is responsible for dissemination,
Right.
our responsibility.
Yeah.
So I'm asking after Wednesday, who's going to be responsible? for
It'll be Kara
dissemination?
working with me on this.
That makes me a little, not the you part,
Yeah.
not that Kara
So what
isn't
if-
capable
yeah.
of the,
Yeah,
but there should be somebody in a supervisory capacity determining how these permits are going to be dished out to the various,
it's not
And the-
permits,
well,
these are applications.
applications. The various applications are going to be distributed to the various
Right,
contractors that we're doing
Right.
business with.
right.
It's not like a deck of cards, one,
So one of the
one,
things that we
one, like-
discussed is the simpler projects go to our contractors,
Mhm.
right? Especially now in winter season, propane, tank installations, heating system, boiler upgrades. Complicated projects go to LaBella.
Except
So-
that makes sense, except who's making that determination?
Based on so when an application comes in, it says whether it's a mechanical, whether it's an addition, I will work with Karen making that determination.
So my
Yeah.
recommendation is to put the guidelines in writing, so there's no.
Confusion.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation
Right.
for this short period of time that we're gonna be without a full-time building inspector. It should
Right.
be in writing, and that way there's a reference point. If you're not reachable or for whatever reason, Karen knows, okay, this is the
Yeah.
order that I'm doing it. This is what Tony decided. This is what we
Right.
decided together, and that way there's no
Yeah.
question.
Right. you can-
That's fine.
it should
I
continue to
yeah.
be ministerial,
Yeah.
essentially. It shouldn't be a situation where,
Mhm.
you know, there's
Right.
substantive
Yeah.
things that you're doing.
Right. I know that when I happened to be there last week when Anthony Zaccarelli, who is one of the plan reviewers. Kara had a pile of applications that needed to be looked at, and she was placed into his box. She was working with him. Now, whether Jeff segregated those, I'm not sure. But I will definitely review that with her and make sure that we have a
Right.
process in place.
Make sure she's
Yeah.
comfortable, you know,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
want to put her in the position where she's like, well, you know, I didn't know, and then, you know, she feels responsible, or, you know.
Yeah, so right now, all the digital stuff, the stuff that comes in online.
Yeah.
We want to send that to Labella, so that I determine with her. Now, the stuff that comes in manually, yes, we need to segregate and figure out whether it goes to Labella or one of the other guys.
Just.
Yeah.
Set it up in a clear way,
Mhm.
so she doesn't have to worry about or second guess herself. As far as.
She's already got
Agreed,
a lot
yeah,
on her plate,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, we had, so she's very comfortable with what we're doing in terms of bringing in Labella, supplementing the third parties that we're already using. She's very comfortable with that. And the other advantage to using Labella is that they will interact directly with the applicants. So we don't need to have anybody else in that loop.
And if it's a matter of inspection, it's gonna be Labella,
Correct.
right? The
Correct.
others are not doing inspection.
And so we
They
hire,
have their own insurance, so that's why they can.
until we
go.
hire
Yeah.
somebody,
And,
well, bring in the new guy. Yeah.
so anything, it's in the matter of backlog inspections that are needed, that
Correct.
file can go to them.
Right. In fact, we have inspections that are potentially being scheduled for this Thursday and Friday.
That's pretty.
And Bella's was gonna talk to Kara today about getting those set up for them, assuming we approve this
I
tonight.
think, you know, we use them to drive through and try to catch up entirely with that and not leave our new building inspector, you know, behind the
Right.
eight ball.
Exactly, yeah,
Well, it's also a service to our fellow citizens in Lewisboro to make sure that the backlog is cleaned up. in a
Yeah.
Timely. Professional.
yeah, and I think this is a good solution, because they have full staff that can, you know, handle multiple applications and in a short period of time.
And
their
the
turnaround
fees
is pretty good.
typically come out of
The building
what the applicant
departments.
is
Right.
paying anyway, so it's not, we're not expending additional town funds.
Right. And we'll monitor it during, you know, say, first quarter of 2023 and see how that
Like a home.
looks compared to, you know, revenue and expense, and who knows, this may be a good model to keep in place.
Yeah, maybe because of the new applications, et cetera, going to slow down holiday seasons and opportunity to start
Right.
at the backlog.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so,
We didn't finish our roll call vote. Shall we
Alright,
start
well,
that again?
Are we finished with discussion now?
yes, I think so. Discussion, roll call, Mary Shaw,
Shah, yes.
Rich, Andrew,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Right, so I think what I'll do next is I'm gonna pull up the spreadsheet and it's here, let me just zoom in here so everyone can see it. I'm gonna share my screen as well. Share.
Which attachment is this, Tony?
This is basically the preliminary budget that we all saw last week.
Oh, it's not one of the ones that you sent us on Wednesday?
did.
It is the one that I sent to you on Wednesday with some minor changes. I'm gonna review those changes here.
So the word additional, because that one that you said said there wasn't any changes from the prior one, so.
Correct, that was the
Now-
one as of the meeting, the last
As
week's
of
meeting.
Monday.
Correct,
Right, you sent the
Incorporating-
cover letter, said there wasn't any changes,
correct.
but now there are changes.
As of this week, that's correct.
Just,
Very
just
minor.
for clarification, the one you sent us on Wednesday
Of
was,
last week,
of last week, was the preliminary budget with the changes we made on Monday or not?
correct,
Okay, so
Right,
up
with
to,
the
up to
five.
the changes up to that point.
correct,
And between Wednesday and today, there were some minor tweaks that you made that are
Correct.
now,
You're
you're gonna
to
show
explain
us,
I'm gonna
but
show
not
you.
in our email from last Wednesday.
correct, correct.
Okay,
So let me, I think what I'll do is I'll preface by saying that,
Is there a cover letter or some kind of overview of what these are?
no. Okay,
Because, yeah, we just had like a bullet point.
But you don't. you don't, so it is 4 items. So I'm gonna review those with the board. So basically, I want to preface by saying that, you know, when I look at this, one of my key objectives is, of course, to make sure that the employees are taken care of, right? We have a small group of employees. We run a very lean shop. And so I just want to preface the discussion by saying that I think we need to keep that in mind, right, as we review the budget, that the employees come first. So just, and that includes both union and non-union, right? So we're, you know, still going through union negotiations and I just want to make everyone aware of that point. So having said that, we originally started when Leo handed the spreadsheet to me, Leo, our controller, it did have a 5% increase in salaries across the board for the non-union folks. And what I did here is I modified that just based on the discussion we had to 4%. And that resulted in a reduction in the salary line of 9,389. For the purpose of seeing how that plays out in the tax cap calculation, I actually, rather than make that change to each employee's lines or each position's
Mhm.
line,
Just top line.
I put it on the supervisor. So I took out $9,389 out of my salary just for this representation purposes, so we can see what the impact is to the number. It
And
doesn't
what-
matter where we place that number,
but you
Right.
made it, what percentage of an increase?
so it's 4%,
4%, okay,
correct?
Instead of 5.
Right,
okay, got it.
right. So now that was one change. The other change is with the fact that we're going to be hiring a building inspector and we're going to use these outside consultants, continue to use them to the extent possible, and also using Labella that we just approved. I felt that we could hold off on bringing on board an assistant building inspector, thus taking away the medical expense associated with that building inspector. I left the salary line in there because we're going to need that. It's going to have to, in fact, let me just scroll down to that section. So that's here. So I kept basically the salary line for the assistant building inspector. Let me just zoom in a little more here. That's the 92,979.
Here, but should be assistant, shouldn't it?
I think our official, you know, I don't recall
We've been
whether it's.
referring ABI.
One is, yeah, when we talk civil service, it's ABI. When we talk here, again, this is legacy. I haven't changed the label. The only thing I did to the label was add Labella Engineering. I spoke to Leo about this today and he said, yeah, just modify the
All
label.
right, so we're keeping the salary line
We're keeping a salary line.
because,
Because we're gonna pay.
Because we want to pay Labella.
services.
Now, that line should actually come under the next section, which is contractual expenses. But for this exercise, I'm just keeping it up there for now. We don't know how much we're going to use them, Labella, right? But it could be more, it could be less,
How
but
much are the benefits we're coming?
so the benefit line, if I scroll down, I took out 31,165 from the medical benefits.
600 and,
That's this
165.
31,165.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the change number 2.
We're coming up with the number that you have.
That's how much medical
No,
benefits
I'm not
cost.
talking about that one. Back to the the deputy line.
The 92,000, that's
Yes.
what the former ABI was paid
That,
before he got
that-
promoted.
that's actually a union, because that's a union title, even though he's not a union member or wasn't when he was
He didn't-
deputy.
It's
He didn't pay
written
dues,
into the.
but it's written into the agreement.
So
that-
even though it says deputy building inspector, you're using the ABA union salary
Rate.
as the placeholder.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
Okay. So that's 31,165.
For the medical that I'm, right, that I'm
Okay.
removing from our.
Change number
Expense.
3.
Change number 3. So change number 3 is on the building department revenue line. So if I go to the general revenue tab,
I'm sorry, just one thing to just think about that a little bit. So
Go back?
is there, yeah, go back. Because one of the benefits in spending the money for Labella is that by processing this, we're generating revenue, which could, far exceed hopefully the investment in paying Labella. I'm just wondering, is any.
and no benefits.
And, right, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there's any way, assuming if there's any kind of matrix or based upon their professional experience, if we know what will be an average or what that 92,000, we'll call an investment in Labella is going to generate at the back end by way of building department revenue for the town. I mean, because, it's a very
If
compelling
you had,
thing.
if you had a
So-
crystal ball, we would
Yeah.
have an answer to
Yeah.
that question. I think where we're getting confused is as follows, right? We talked about hiring Labella, which we just did, right? And similarly to the review of Mercedes, their fees tend to come out of the fees that we collect
Building
upfront,
department fees.
right?
right.
It's one of the things that's unique
10%
about
of the
Lewisboro.
construction cost.
But what I'm saying is, Lewisboro, we charge the fees upfront when an application comes in,
Correct.
right? So in the case of Mercedes, the review by Labella was paid out of the fees that were collected because we already collected that revenue from them
Right.
from the beginning. So my question in analyzing this is that if it's going to continue to work in that fashion, then why are we looking at this 92,000 as if it's paying Labella when they're coming out of technically
When this
what would otherwise be revenue, and then.
Because
we're
the revenue,
estimating
because the revenue is still where it is on the sheet
The
here.
revenue sheet.
So you need to have both sides of it. You need to have the cost side as well.
Yeah, and ideally, any costs, like the Labella cost, should go under the contractual expenses.
Got it, it should be moved to another line,
Right?
but right now that's where it's
Right.
sitting. Okay. All right, got it.
So in having Labella, we will hopefully have an increase in building department revenue.
Not necessarily. So they're charging us $5 per thousand. We collect $10 per thousand. So that's pretty much 50%.
If
Of
we
our-
have the breakup.
Correct. Now we get the CO fee, which is another 10% of, I think it's another 10% of the final construction cost. I have to verify that.
So 10%
Labella doesn't
front
get
end,
that.
10% at the beginning, 10% at the end.
Correct.
All right, so what we're hoping is that in paying these, I don't know, for lack of better consultants that we've hired to fill in the gap, we're hoping not to spend any more than would have been allocated to the salary of the assistant building inspector and save 30 some odd $1,000 in benefits.
I think the
That's-
way
that's
to
the-
look
that's
at it is that when we have an actual person there, a hired person,
Yeah.
you're committed to that salary.
Yes,
And your, like, how much revenue you get is so it's variable.
yes,
When we go with Lavelle here, you're not actually committed to that number. This is an estimate.
right.
And both of them are going like
May
this.
flush.
So in some respects, the risk level is down.
You're giving up
Right.
But
what we've already collected.
on the other hand, if if it was an employee and they could conceivably, generate more, all the upside comes to the town.
And the other way to look at it is
Okay.
with an employee, depending on the performance of, each person is different. Maybe they're knocking out, depending on the complexity of the plans, maybe 3-4 plans a day, right? Labella, has a whole team, so they may be knocking out 10, 20, 30 a day.
Okay.
So we get to look at it from that perspective.
I mean, it's compelling if as long as the residents aren't spending more and they're getting their work done and we're actually reducing our exposure in some level. Let's see how it works.
So is Labella,
No, I think it's really important that we get that backlog taken care of.
Yeah,
We'll learn a lot in the first few weeks, I think.
so is Labella, unless, one of the things you said, the benefit is they'll talk to the applicant. They'll follow up with them directly. So when that's done, is that somehow memorialized for the file?
it is. They do a very good job at documenting everything.
Including their interactions with the applicant.
Correct.
Needs to be done.
I've seen the interaction with Mercedes, for example.
Okay, so
Emails,
it's all there,
letters,
somebody could
yeah,
pick it up.
and I was copied.
Paper trail, okay.
What's that?
I have a question, but it would be advice of counsel.
Okay.
On this,
You could call for an executive at the end of the
At the
session
end.
if you want.
Okay,
at
That's
the
fine.
end.
Sure.
okay, that's fine.
Well, we've already worked with them, so that's the best reference
Yeah,
already,
yes.
but I was gonna say, if
We work with them.
you had some questions about how they operate.
And they're, I don't know if you recall Chazen,
Sure.
name Chazen, so they merged.
Oh,
Work
right,
together.
okay.
So Chazen had done some work for the town
Yeah.
some years back.
Yeah, and we never had any issues with documentation or anything.
Right.
I think you're gonna find
Yeah.
out about trying to pull some efficiencies out of it
Mhm.
by getting them into our system if we can.
Right. So the
No,
other thing,
I like this whole plan, that's not my issue, I'm thinking about complications on the other end. That have nothing to do with. the
Okay.
efficiency.
Well,
Okay, so we
discuss-
can move on.
Yes.
Yeah. So the other point I wanted to bring out in terms of the lines here is that we have a $25,000 line for code enforcement officer. So that's also something that we can tap into if needed for Labella. When we hire a building inspector,
Can they do
he
that work?
he might have the bandwidth to do this work. Absolutely.
Or that's true,
Yeah.
the building inspector could be doing that.
Correct.
And that's probably good because that's a lot of sort of more complex interactions.
Right.
I would say,
With the public.
So we're technically saving $25,000 on the code enforcement line
Unless we need
Correct,
it,
unless we hire someone to do code enforcement on the side
after.
and then squeeze out 25,000.
Okay.
We have put this in there with the 2021 budget. And it wasn't used, and it was put in there for overtime,
right?
Okay.
and our assistant
Okay.
building inspector didn't do
Yeah.
overtime, even though that money
But
was in
this
there.
is an
Same thing
important-
with 2022,
Okay, so that's.
Got
so we didn't use, I think this year there was some of that was tapped into, but not
Okay,
the whole thing.
This is an important area for us to target improvement in as well.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
okay.
So that's, yeah, so now on the revenue side, the other change was for the building department also. I was talking to Leo about this today. We had originally been provided with, for the 2022 budget, the figure was 550,000 as the anticipated revenue in building inspector fees. That was bumped up to 600,000.
Yes.
And we're actually doing a lot better than that.
Yeah.
We're probably on target to do something like 800,000+. So the budget that was provided to us by Jeff, he basically replicated the budget that Joe had previously provided.
Right.
Was 550.
Oh, I have 565, okay. Okay.
That's 550. And so I added another $50,000 to that.
See, and in my looking at it, I was thinking at least 30. And
Okay.
you had brought that up, so we were on the same page.
So with those changes. And again, those are the only 1, 2.
So you want to move that up to approximating at 600,000 in revenue for the building department?
Correct, so that's currently where we stand now.
Which would still be 100 plus below the 2022 year to date.
Correct. Yeah.
And assuming a slowdown, so hopefully it won't be more than 15% slowdown. We'll still
Right.
hit the
Right.
600.
Right.
Yeah. And hopefully, yeah, we're on this estimating and we're gonna do better than that.
Well, this, and I think we touched on this, I think in an email, if I understand correctly. So is that potentially an economic benefit based upon the stuff in the pipeline? Because, so if this current backlog creates a built up revenue opportunity when C of Os are issued in 2023. In other words, it's a lag time, right?
So there's a lag time, so
I
COs that
think
we're
you
not
referenced
providing.
this in an email.
Yeah,
sent out.
yeah.
So we have something here, so you extrapolate the projects that have C of Os,
And they're not hitting this year's budget.
right?
So the
This
next
year's
year's
revenue.
budget.
When it's collected, so that may offset any
Right,
down,
any downturn in 2023. Right.
And we said, with our surplus being in a good place right now, that we can now, cut those buffer margins and feel okay about that because surplus is there for that kind of thing. If you miss your target, you can pick it up.
Right.
Okay, so where are we now?
So the only other change I did was in the Parks and Rec. If you recall last meeting, I shared with the board that Nicole has said that she added 70,000 to her revenue. But she said if we redo the pool house, we can generate another $15,000 in pool revenue. So I want us to redo the pool house.
that's $1 million.
And
Not necessarily.
it won't be done next year.
It's probably a 2 to 2.5 year project. If
Yeah.
done properly.
I'm being more optimistic, but.
You are, it just,
Okay. So what I did was I added 15,000 to here. Now, if you want me to go back to
It's
70,000.
not based on, I mean,
well,
It's based on, yeah.
I mean, when you think
we
about it,
already-
great
you gotta
pool
put
all
it out,
season.
you gotta put it out to bid, right? Then we gotta
Yeah.
have plans. We gotta review, we gotta
Yeah.
decide what we want, what we don't want. We're talking like months of review to decide what
Right.
we want the pool house to look like. And then once we get there, then you put it out to bid
Yeah.
for contracts. So it's not gonna happen.
So it's not gonna happen by pool season. Again,
Right.
and it depends on the work that we do. We haven't decided whether we're gonna do a complete replacement or refurbishing.
I know, it's just one of those
Upgrade.
things that if you're gonna do it, you should do it
Yeah,
like the
you
first
We
time.
also have
right?
nothing that's 20%.
No.
Nothing.
So
Yeah.
we're
Starting
nowhere.
from scratch.
So I'll pull that 15K out of it.
It's nice
I'm
to think
convinced.
about, but I think it's probably sadly unrealistic.
Okay. So that goes back to 70,000. So that's it. Those are the only changes that I had.
Well, this is in Parks and Rec, is in the budget for 2023. Are costs, like fees and everything staying the same for 2023?
Mhm. As far as I know, having attended the Parks and Recs Advisory Council meeting, they have talked about, or they recommend that the prices go up for the fees. I know the Fine Day Fair had a higher price as far as a rental fee for on the trip. So they are looking at making their prices
Good idea.
such that they won't be lowballing themselves.
Right, like, for example, camp and teen treks and those programs is the budget that was submitted for 2023, assuming no increase in any of those things at all.
That's a Nicole question. I just,
Because that would tie into the revenue.
Yeah.
She has a projection of increase of 70, so, well, that would be pointing now.
I think that she's increasing the cost of rental of places like Onatru and Fox Valley for the different non-affiliated organizations. And also that the deposits will be higher as well. So when someone damages a field from playing soccer when they shouldn't, then, the cost will be covered by the deposit.
So I'm okay with sort of raising things like that, but I would be careful about sort of camp fees and
Yeah,
things like that.
I also
or-
hesitate about raising camp fees because the working families have a lot of things to pay for,
Yeah.
like gasoline,
Well-
and the cost of milk is going up, so. you
I
have to
did,
be
I did
mindful.
see that they were raising the salaries for the camp employees and for the lifeguards, and I know that last year we struggled with, right, because there's, there's a lot of competition up there. And I
It
mean,
was not.
it wasn't good. 2 summers ago, even my daughter, she switched camps because she made more somewhere else and, made me sad, but I mean, she
Yeah.
needed to make money, right? So I know that we don't charge a great deal for use for weddings and events either.
But those, I think those
Those
are
are
the
all-
prices are going to be raised.
Actually, there's a main event day camp goes from 25 to 35. Team treks from 105 to
Well,
120.
the other thing is, if you have the proper staffing, you can have more kids come to camp.
Correct.
So you have to have a proper ratio of campers to camp.
Right.
So we don't have a physical capacity problem? Like,
We don't have a physical capacity, the problem is staffing. And the problem with staffing is that, we were not paying minimum wage.
Yeah.
And it was a graded process of bringing it up over the last couple of years. And now we have to do the right thing and pay these young people at least minimum wage. And a competitive wage as well. So we can have a safe environment for the campers and the swimmers.
Talked about earlier, like the library.
Exactly.
People we had to adjust for last year, the phase of the state increase.
So I have a couple of things. One is, of course, the roads, which we don't have a number there. Or you look like you
No, I was gonna say,
have some thoughts on
if
it.
you're gonna jump to a different
Oh, okay.
department, are we done with Parks and Rec, this part of it? Because what I like to do is not hold up the chief all night,
Ah.
so. Speaking of highway, wait, he's upstairs.
No, he's
So,
going to
still here, yeah, so they both offered to be here in case, because I know the last meeting, there were questions from police budgets.
Why don't you do, please?
Yeah, there's, I think
So let me jump over to that. Oh, but let me just show everyone, so as it stands now, our current tax rate,
Before we do the police department, what does the rate do?
that's what I was just gonna show, 4216. Is what we're down to, and according to Leo's spreadsheet, we need to shave off another 138,903 to get down to the tax cap.
Okay. Okay.
so the 150 number was before. Anyway,
So
yeah.
Thank you for coming to.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I think the one question that we left off last meeting, I'm talking about, so, looking at the budget, there was, an increase of part-time officers, I think it was 80,000, going from memory, 75, 80,000, somewhere in there. But in there also, was, a line.
overtime. That was
It was the VTL person.
Yeah,
We
so
talked
it-
about the
Traffic,
traffic person.
traffic cop,
Traffic cop,
That solely did just traffic, not
yes,
responsible.
SLE.
SLE,
Which
selective law enforcement.
which was a $35,000 item. So the question, and we talked about briefly, the question is if we invested in that 35,000, which we had a dedicated person for SLE and what against it was
Selective
Selective
law
law
enforcement.
enforcement.
So it's a vehicle and traffic car.
the VTL also.
Right.
Sure.
So if we invested in that 35, would the potential for revenue offset the increase in the for the part-time officers, number one, and we talked a little bit about it also, I think serve the purpose of, based upon complaints all over town, having about speed, in different areas, give you have a person with free reign to frequent the town and be dedicated to complaints and be more responsive, closer in time to when the complaints in certain areas as far as speed, target speed enforcement, for example, in those areas.
But that revenue gets, that's reported in the court. That's the court, that's reported to the state. We get a percentage.
Depends what it
Correct.
is, depends,
It's
certain resolutions, we get a higher percentage. For example.
Right.
Certain detailed.
So we're not gonna get 100% though.
No, the fines go to the state.
Correct.
We have
That's kinda what-
surcharges.
Right.
I mean, I personally gear it, I don't look at revenue. I gear it towards the safety of the residents and people passing through. Data alone, I look at accidents, where do they occur? And that's where I'm gonna put my SLE car in troubled areas where I get a lot of complaints from residents. We get a lot of speeds.
So the SLE is over above the shifts that we already have.
So currently, right now, on a daily basis, we have 2 patrol officers. The split is Mead Street, because that's kind of the halfway mark for the town of Lewisboro. One officer goes from Mead Street, goes out to Golden's Bridge. The other officer goes from Mead Street out to Vista.
Effectively the sectors, 2 sectors.
Yes, so there's 2 sectors, A and B, okay? If there's a heavy call in Vista, the guy from Golden's Bridge floats over to Vista to back up that officer. So we average, I'd say, anywhere from 5 to 7 calls a day or a shift. And so they're busy. A lot of times they will stop and run radar. However, they'll get tied up, they'll get a 911 call. They have to drop what they're doing and go to that 911 call. It could be anywhere from 10 minutes, 15 minutes of handling that call, as well as doing another 15-minute report, all the way up to an hour to 2 hours, depending on the call and the severity of it. So they're tied up doing that kind of stuff. An SLE car would be able to just focus on strictly vehicle and traffic enforcement.
So the last version, thank you, Chief. The last version we had, the 35 was out or was it put back in? I think the
The
last.
35 was out.
No, so it was in.
And what the 35,000 would get
Yeah.
you is approximately, and why we say 35,000, because I'm going to utilize a part-time officer and they're capped at $35,000 a year. And it's going to approximately get you 2 8-hour shifts a week on targeting troubled areas in the town of Lewisboro.
So it's a cap on the expense. There's no benefits because it's a part-time officer being utilized for those services.
And that's the max you can make.
Right. And so, and with the primary objective obviously being safety, law enforcement, potential benefit, helping out the revenue side potential.
Do you think their ability to focus and be just doing this is gonna have a significant impact? Obviously, the calls and emails that we get about speeding on Ridgefield Avenue or Mead Street or wherever are probably some of the most common things we see.
We have 7 state routes that run through the town of Lewisboro. I mean, they can go through them all. I think we all know what they are. Whenever there's an accident on 84 or on 684, what do? They go through North Salem, Ridgefield into Lewisboro. There's no matter where they are, they're traveling through Lewisboro.
So on a safety standpoint, having the SLE, how would you work it as far as like the sector aspect of it? Say the SLE is in sector B, on a 911 call, would that person back up on that side? And that way, you're also,
I think you're picking these.
Depending on the call, not every call you're getting backed up on. I mean, if you're going to a regular run-of-the-mill alarm call, where, residents aren't updating their alarms and they're going off by the wind or whatever, that officer's not necessarily floating over.
but also may slightly enhance coverage as well as enhancing
Absolutely.
the officer safety because you have another one.
100%. 100%. But their main objective is to provide
Understood.
that detail.
So right now we've taken that out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is there a way we can put back in without increasing the taxes?
You have to take it, I mean, if you want to put it back in, I mean, just to see what the impact would be, so we're
Yeah.
at 4.216. If I take it out,
And we'll
Bring
still
that back to
looking to cut
zero.
another 132 somewhere, right?
4.216, we are now at 4.7. So it's half a point.
Right, so see, it's usually this is 65, so we're
Okay.
we're about 165 over half the time.
Yeah, 176, 581.
We also maybe do a portion, so maybe also authorize them to.
Well, my thinking, well, it's not gonna help you with
Yeah.
the budget, whatever, but I'm thinking you could. You put this in there, you could still pilot it for, 3 months or something and see if it's actually doing what we hope to do, and with the understanding that if it's not really having any, significant impact, we could quit it, but.
I think calendar wise also, I think it would be something that would be ramped up in the spring as opposed to dead of winter.
You gotta take weather into account as well. I mean, snow on the ground, there's really nowhere to really pull cars over. It's a hazard, ice and everything for the officer on the road and the person that's being pulled over as well.
So maybe we look to roll it out in spring when it's that the timing that maximize it that one. Good for like second quarter 2023 to roll it out, see how it goes.
So,
I could do whatever you'd like. I personally think it's a win-win.
This, so maybe we do that, so we take the chiefs, so we roll it out for second quarter.
I mean, I have the electronic speed signs. They're wonderful. They work great, but they're temporary. People get complacent. Where you're actually hitting people where it hurts
Tommy, can you,
and educating them as well. I mean, you're also not just writing, you're also warnings on top of,
just a second.
So you think we get enough bang for the buck if we roll it out like in January?
I don't think,
Well, that's-
I don't
that's
think the
the
winner.
That's
That's what I meant, right?
Can you put, if we do.
three quarters of 35,000.
Exactly, so it would be minus 8,750. So if the adjustment would be 8,750, 8,750. So that would give him 3/4 of that
Correct.
35,000. You see what I'm saying?
So we can test it.
yeah.
So we can test it, and then we can try and find the additional money later on in the calendar year. If we have additional revenue, how does that sound?
Find additional money. So
Through,
the budget's baked, right? It was in
Right, I know
December,
it's-
so it's,
I know it's baked.
Yeah.
But we can work on donations.
well, we can see,
You know what I think? I think that we do a pilot program in the spring. Run it for the spring, see how it goes. If it's successful, then the budget process in October, we say, okay, for next year, we're gonna fully fund it. Why don't we do it that way?
Okay,
And that way, we're not saying we're gonna try to find money from somewhere we can't anticipate, but rather, if you do it for a short period of time, see if it really does what Dave feels that it's going to do, and if so, then it makes it a real serious consideration for the budget for
So
2024.
let's make it a 6-month pilot program, spring, summer.
I would just do it for a few months to see. I think this is sufficient, the number.
you
Well,
think we
here-
should just do half
3
then?
months.
here you're doing it for 3/4
3/4 of the year. Do you
Of the
think
year.
we should just do?
with this number. So you're saying just do it,
I'm saying to do it for 90 days and see how it works, and if it's what Dave says it's gonna do, then when the budget comes up in October, now we have a good basis.
Right.
We know it's gonna work.
So do you think we should change it to, in the original number that we cut completely was 35,000?
Right.
so now
What
we're
we've
gonna cut.
just done,
Put an even 10,
Quarters of that.
call it even 10. We can-
So this is, 875 is what, a quarter?
3/4.
yeah, so should we just cut it in half then? The
Or you want to cut it, you want to
35,000?
cut it, but you want to,
Yeah.
it's gonna be 3/4 of that 35,000. So 3/4 times 35,000 is the number that would go in here. Because you eliminated 3/4, you're only doing it for 3 months, which is 1/4.
So that's what 1/4 that's the cost of 1/4.
26,250, so
So,
it's 8750.
No,
8750 is the 1/4
Right.
of the 35,000.
right, which means you're
So what we're giving him is 3/4.
3/4.
So do we want to give him 3/4 or 1/2?
Andrew's suggesting giving him 1/4.
8750.
Okay, so then,
Why don't you give me 8390? And that'll give me 3 months.
okay, just a second, so 35 to.
3/4 of 35. Is that what you did?
I just did 3 months, so 3 months, there's
So
24
what
shifts.
We're going by shifts, so actually.
Yeah.
No,
So it's 2 days a week.
So
So you want how much?
83 some, so 8,500, but 8,500 covers it for 3 months of shifts.
That's at the current rate though, that's not
Well,
whatever the new negotiation.
so the total for the year was 35,000. So
It's gonna be 8,300.
It's gonna be
shifts.
35,000
He's
minus.
breaking it down, he's not breaking it down
I'm
by
just going by.
calendar, he's breaking it down by shifts, he's multiplying cost each shift for 3
Right, but
quarters.
okay. But essentially, we're eliminating 3/4.
Yeah.
So that number is,
26,500. That gives you 8,500. Just a little
Perfect.
over. Okay, so the number we're taking out is what you've got on the screen.
We had it out, so we're putting back to 85, really.
Yes, exactly.
That'll give me 3 month pilot program.
Right.
And we'll keep track of everything.
okay,
I hope everybody is, looks at that closely because, I mean, I just know the number of, emails I've seen where I was walking out on the street and, I nearly got killed, some crazy,
I've seen it in our neighborhood.
I'm sending three additional officers to radar LiDAR school as well. In December. We hold a class once a year. So radar LiDAR.
What is
We
that?
either have like the K band, and then we also have the LiDAR, which is the laser, which we don't have, but it's more used on like highways. State troopers will use it on 684.
So advanced radar operation.
Yeah.
Essentially.
They call it laser. It gives you the distance and everything.
Oh, okay. Cool. Okay.
so do we have anything else from the chief? Or?
No, that was the only item I
That
was
was it.
saying.
That was it.
Yeah. Everything else is,
Everything else is mostly contractual.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, so Peter's here. Do we want to discuss any highway items? While he's here.
Yeah, you can do actually. I think I just said I have a salt question.
Solve question, okay?
Dave's sleeping.
So,
It's a joke. Assault. He said assault. Well, I'm fine. Sorry.
You already took 30,000.
Be here all week.
Hey, listen, it's your town.
It's not my town.
Yes, it is.
So where we left off, I think last year we had a 115 and then we were originally, from memory, we were at, I think, a 1. Where you had it like something and then we were back to 160, I think was the current number.
Wait, what do we?
The salt.
Oh, the salt, yeah, hold on a second.
That's my own.
Highway fund.
On top of it.
It hasn't the cost of salt gone up.
Well, went up 18%, plus you used up what you had down there.
Yeah.
You had a good stockpile last year. That's gone.
That's under your, no, this is gravel and sand. Hold on a second. It was-
Yeah, it was on the explanation of salt itself is going up 18%.
So I guess. Oh, salt here, it is contractual expenses, yeah.
Yeah,
So we took out 30,000.
You're 160 over.
you still took me 30s.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you got to build your bank up a little bit. Even on top.
You're gonna look at that and see if there's any.
So, you know, with the way they're playing right now with salt deliveries, I think you're going to want to be careful, man. They
Yeah.
adjust it down next year if you want, but it's not looking good.
So what can help us is the weather, basically. It's Mother Nature.
We'd say that every year, you know, and last year we got banged with the ice.
Mhm.
In fact, we were loaning salt to other towns.
Right.
That ran out, unfortunate, but
Because you had.
you don't have as much as you had that to get this issue.
So 115, and putting in 20% increase, that's another 23, so that's, we'll call it 135. And then, so it's another 25 grand over and above the the increase in cost. Here's my question, and I don't know if it's ever been discussed specifically. Where does the salt, where does the salt fit in as far as effective in taking care of the roads? My point is this. Putting out salt, number one, I understand that it's only effective, it's above 20 degrees, number one, I could be wrong on that. Number two, putting out the salt and just serves to further, the more salt we put out, the more it deteriorates the roads based upon the temperature fluctuations over the course of the winter. And so essentially by putting out the salt, the question is, are we doing a significant, is it a significant benefit towards taking care of the roads during the winter, number one? And number two, is that more than offset based upon the deterioration of the road, which is what we're talking about, based upon temperature fluctuations, which were making our road stock worse because we're not going back to the value to invest over time. So are we
By using salt, are we deteriorating the roads more, faster, and creating a bigger problem, more expensive problem on the roadside versus?
I'll doubt council's question, thank you.
Twofold. First of all, you're measuring the roads and you're measuring public safety. One life is going to take it. Now, the salt, when the salt comes out of the truck now, and the new trucks that we have, a couple of them, about 5 of them now, they're all calibrated. Okay, we've cut down salt use on those trucks, but we're also using mag chloride. We're wetting it before it goes down. But what's killing you is no matter what the degree is, ice is ice. You wet it and you put it down, you melt the ice. You're going to deteriorate your road, yeah. You can't help that, but you also got to make sure these people got a right to travel. And that's a big issue.
Salt is
It's an element.
water problem.
Right,
Yeah.
lake communities,
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Not only lake communities, it's
Everywhere.
yeah, everywhere.
I mean,
And every town is facing that same dilemma
Right.
with water quality, so we ran the, over in Kitchewan. We've got 2 roads over there that we use, one road over there, we just use sand on because of well contamination over there.
And how does that work, performance wise? How's the sand? I mean, I know
Performance not as good, but it's
Yeah.
doing all right. It's a very back road.
Mhm.
Okay, Hemlock is a very back road.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't take a lot of amp, but the biggest problem is, that the sand, when it gets the temperature, as he's saying too, sand is an aggregate,
Mhm.
but it can't nestle in. You gotta have salt, you gotta have calcium to make it burrow,
Yeah.
and get down through that ice.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you gotta.
so
Yeah.
the way it's set up now, based upon the routes, so just take me through snow plowing 101. So there's an event that comes as predicted. So the first part is always going to be salt, sometimes going to be salt, et cetera.
Usually,
And then assuming I guess my question is the process. So
As I said,
So my question is, just take through the process. So we have an event. First thing is making a decision whether or not to salt or whether it's automatic. And assuming there's salting, then what's behind that in the process in time, as far as the next thing. What I'm getting at is this. Let's say, is it better? Question mark, I don't know. Is it better to just go and plow?
no,
As opposed to moving up the time to plow when the event starts, as opposed to salting and waiting a certain amount of time.
We're already short drivers, right?
and let's say you go out and you plow and you don't salt it. Now you make a slick situation, and you gotta go back out and salt it, and now you got a slush situation. You should always put down the salt first, especially a wet salt, we put it down with calcium. Then what happens is when the snow falls, right on that, we like to get out before the snow hits. So when the snow hits, you've got a bond, you're not making a bonding issue. That ground's cold, that snow hits it as cold, you're gonna use double the salt to get that off there. It's 101. You have to you've got to break that bond before the bond happens. We've done that forever here, and it's worked out perfect here. Most towns are doing the same thing. What do you think they do with brine? They're out there brining the roads the day before because they don't want a bond.
So the salt is effectively not increasing the temperature of the surface, but it's delaying the time when the snow.
For the salt, for the snow to bond to the surface. Once that snow spawns, now you can use double the salt trying to get it off. It's not worth it, believe me.
Okay. Just understanding, okay, so it delays the time that the snow bond advised by.
It's a bonding process, you know, it's.
Okay. Just with all the, I think with all the technology, still doing the same thing from 100 years ago. with that.
Yeah, but you've got, you know, in the long run, you've cut down, believe it or not. And the old ways that was done before the newer trucks and stuff. You know, it's cut down a lot. It really has. And now we got these new little 550s on the small route. We don't have a driver for one, but that's long haul. We'll get there yet. And that certainly will help out the lake communities where you worry about the water issue. We've got 2 small trucks that we're trying to use in the lake issue, so we can control it better on these small lakes here on the salt. And, you know, it's all modern stuff that as you change equipment and you build it up, then you get into the 21st century.
I remember going with you to that one event up at, what's that center up north there? And they did they had presentations from all these North Country towns about their alternative test, beet juice and all those different things. And with all that, you still don't see them deployed.
As you afforded Cornell School of Roads to come down here 3 weeks ago, and they did their winter maintenance course. They sat down 2 instructors and their engineer, and they had 35 pupils here. And bottom line, as the instructor says, get out there and get it down, lay it down before that's sold. The sooner you get it, the better. Quick question. I mean, a lot of times we're first on the run because we're watching from all areas of the town. Joe's in one area, I'm in another, and Danny's in another. So that helps. It's whole totally different. North Salem, Joe could be coming down from there, and we're done. We're done, and they're just pulling out. And you got to be very. Biggest thing is traffic, and biggest thing is school buses. You know, we relate to those school buses. I mean, we work with the school very closely to get her the salt from us, and they're calling us all the time. So that's my whole thing is the safety valve period, you know, and I can't subtract.
So your perfect plan is to get the salt down X amount of time before the legs go. What is that?
Ideally,
Yeah.
if I know if the snow legitimately is going to arrive at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they get it pretty well up, I've got them on. They're on the road by 5:30 in the morning. I've got to get them up there. But see what we've done here, that you increase the time so I don't have to bring them another hour early. We're loading the trucks and they stay in the shop at night. It was not done years ago because sand is so heavy. When you load it with the trucks in the barn, it raises havoc on the springs. Salt is later, okay? And it's dry and it's in the barn. So when they're going out, you know, as soon as they start, the trucks are on the route. They're not going down and loading. They used to lose an hour and a half. Now we're an hour and a half loading the trucks. We stopped that.
Too ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, and maybe one truck can't get in the barn, the rest are already on route, they're going, you know. When I call them in and they're all get called in at once, as soon as they come in, they don't wait for the guys, the other guys. They know their route, they get in their truck and they go. You see them all going at a different, they don't sit, wait, well, you know, so-and-so's in here yet, should we wait? No, they're going. That's our rule.
We've got the coverage for all the routes.
No,
Okay.
working on it, I spoke to Tony today.
Tony's gonna drive, excellent.
do that too.
Yeah, well, it's fine.
Add it to the list.
And see, the reason is because the 2 drivers were missing our town employees.
Right.
Okay, and it makes a difference when you have a union. So we have outside contractors, but no outside contractors can use town equipment. It's the insurance reasons and everything else. So we're looking into it, the possibility of one of the past employees that we've had maybe available. If that's good, that's great.
Actually, to that point, I'd like to ask Greg, I'm gonna try to get him up on the screen here.
And if we can use a parks employee, that would be great.
So Greg, question, can we, if we wanted to outsource to a company to do plowing using their own equipment, is that something that we can do?
You're doing that now.
Do you not set part-time plow rates every year for independent contractors
We do,
to cover
small
areas? Don't you do that every year anyway?
Yeah, we do that on the small trucks. We have 6 routes that outside contractors do, but we don't outsource the town trucks, the larger trucks that do the salt run. Our town
Right, they-
employee
But
trucks.
is- but
Those
is there-
contractors use their own vehicles.
They don't have them.
They use their own. No?
Too expensive for a contractor to have a salt truck.
No, but they have their own plow vehicles, correct?
That's where you're unique. You control it, you do it, and you send them out. And that's what you
So
want.
they-
Or you're gonna be relying on somebody that says, I got 2 salt trucks. I got, oh, you know what? One's broken. We're not
Okay,
making
so
that one.
the question, Tony, can you restate the question so I understand it? fully?
Yes, and it is, if there is a company out there that has these large trucks that can salt and plow, can we hire them? Instead of using our own equipment and our own drivers?
What I would say is there's a potential that you could have a union grievance in that circumstance. Because that may be considered collectively bargained work that you're giving to non-bargaining unit personnel.
But that's not the case with the smaller contractors?
I think in theory they could as well, but I think that's a past practice that's
Past practice.
it's often adhered to because sometimes there's just not enough personnel or vehicles to cover all of the routes, and you have those on a contingent basis in that circumstance on an hourly rate, as opposed to saying, we're going to basically farm out a large portion of what the highway department does in terms of snow removal to non-union members. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying you should not be surprised if you have some union action in that circumstance.
Right.
Okay.
So you are working to see if the former employee can come back?
Well, it came up today, Tony and I were talking about it, and he was checking with another department head that uses the same individual, okay? Because there are limits to how much they can earn. But according to, I just saw and read today, New York State retirement, post-retirement, lifted the 35,000 cap until December of this month. Now, they've done that continuously because of COVID.
Right.
Okay, so if that present employee were allowed to use him, we certainly would be good until December, and they've been lifting the cap every, pretty much every couple of months, and depending on how much the other department's going to use them next year, that's where it becomes.
So they've been extending it so it's extended out to December 2020.
Right now, it's
Right now,
extended out, there's no cap
through the end of the year.
until December, and they've been doing this, they did it with the school until June of next year. They keep every couple of months.
If you do that again, that would open it up for the whole winter season. They do it, they jump it like last year.
Yeah. They've been jumping it because of COVID, twofold, because you can't get employees, and if the people have the ability to do it, it makes sense that until the nation straightens out with employment.
I was going to work today in 684 that assigned New York's, looking.
Yeah, so if we can get to one.
Yeah.
We're still out another one. Tony's looking into seeing if possible, if we could get a lot of towns, every town employee, when it snows, they plow. That's just Bedford saying that's what you do. So we're trying to see if the other department that has a couple of employees, young boys there, if they can plow for us. We got to check with that department head. And if we can get one of those guys to plow for us, plus the retired one, then we're back on step.
And they will need the CDL.
No, the runs don't need a CDL. The one run that Joel Smith had did not require a CDL. It's a small truck with a sander. So that's good. And then the next one's that Jeff had from the building permits, pickup truck. Does not require a special license, just I believe the union situation in those two. Other than that, the private contractors. So hopefully we'll know, because like I say, it's around the corner.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be a harp on it, but I don't want to get caught.
We want our neighborhoods to be
Yeah.
safe.
And you always have, and it just came at a hard time this year because people retired. And
We don't
relied
wanna
on
get
Joel
caught.
quite a bit.
We don't want to get caught, but we could. I mean, like, we could have a snowstorm next week.
Well, it's funny, last Saturday, and you get up in the morning, I see it on the deck. I said, yeah, Saturday morning, or so I said,
Yeah.
you've got to be kidding me. And of course, I always throw up the panic shield. I know it's nothing. And I thought it was fine. Went to Ridgefield, their roads were completely salted. Every road in Ridgefield was salted. I said, I must have missed something there. Ridge didn't do it or nothing, but it can happen that quick.
Yeah.
And the problem is, you'll have it in this town. You'll have nothing here. depending on where that storm is coming, usually when it comes down from Somers, the bridge gets hit. Okay, so we're laid out in such a fashion in the wintertime. I've always got the three of us trying to watch either area and so we can make the call from either house and just drop the guys in.
Anything else on salt
So
or?
what is the budget implication of this discussion just now? Like,
We've already cut his salt budget by 30,000.
I got the salt, but I'm curious about how are we staffed? We're missing?
You're already missing, you're down, guys. Well, the department is down.
Oh, the part
We
will
have-
never be up to what it was, but it is. It could, yeah, if you had a couple of your own members, sure, your budget can't afford, if we had two more guys, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Even one, you would be having this discussion.
But really, what's changed is that Joel is retired.
Joel is retired and then the building inspector has that, and Joel was a main player in this.
Right. Yeah.
You know, well, I think we could not do without Joel.
So if you wanna train somebody up to do that,
I would like to, yeah. I mean, if in fact this one employee that if we can use it and I'll call, if I get to go ahead and it's okay, I will give him a call tomorrow and see if he's available.
and
Yeah.
as a person who's ever plowed before.
Oh, yeah, every year.
Oh.
You know who the person is. I just don't want to throw it out there and I'm
Okay.
sure you
No,
will
that's
right away.
that's
He
fine.
did for us last year. He always has, but again, he too retired and can make so much. And then he's still working in another department.
So we'll find that out. I mean, so we.
And I'll still need one more person.
Yeah, so we can, yeah. We'll talk, we'll find out
So if
tomorrow.
we get the other person, yeah.
On the, let me just ask a question about the chips. So we have 170,000. Is that, is there a chance that could be higher?
Chance could be higher or lower, depending on your
At what
government.
point do we know?
You really won't know until normally around March.
If it's
Okay.
higher, it's.
When the governor
$30,000.
signs into the new budget, what they're going to allocate to chips is when you find out. I
So
usually
that
get
has
a
been
heads up a little
allocated
bit.
already in the budget for 2023?
No. They won't release that,
Right.
you know, but now that she's governor, maybe it would come out earlier, I don't know, but they usually don't do that. Last year we got a bonus. Last year we thrown an extra 40,000.
Right, that's what I was.
That doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
You know, they don't give out the money. You get your standard 200. If we have 180, that's 380 and that's what you got, period.
Okay. So that line, we can't do anything, so we're gonna leave the way it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, as soon as you know, all you do is you hope it's going to be bigger than what I said,
Right.
and that she doesn't cut it. She cut it. What it basically means, if it gets cut, then we do less, right? I mean, and you'll know what we can do, and I'll give you and tell you what we'll be
Right.
able to accomplish out of that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you. Get home safely.
You too. So as it stands now, yeah, we're at 4.34%.
That's what we.
Now, the other thing, the other thing I wanna just share with you is that we did get the new rates for the medical insurance. Yeah. So for the individual plan, the rates went up 12.45%. And for the family plan went up 14.91%. So my discussion with Leo today, we discussed this. So the contingency line that he's got,
115.
yeah, may cover this depending on everything else, like the union negotiations.
That's what we had, I think we had a 60 contingency on highway and
And
115
115 in general, correct, right. So we need to, yeah, so one exercise I would like for us to go through is to see exactly who's got individual, who's got family, and then calculate the actual change. And then plug that number in, and compare that. So Leo and I will have to sit down, compare that to the contingency budget. And see if,
And the
That
increase
needs to be
under the night shift, it's contractually, there's a maximum contribution.
of 2,000 per,
That stays the same.
correct.
Does the budget show who's declined to sign up for insurance?
Not specifically, but what you'll see is, for example, if I scroll up. You know, so if I look at town board, we have a total medical benefits line of 124,660. So that's roughly 4 family plans.
So that would be, you could easily take out one family plan because I do not take the insurance.
Shouldn't we have signed our
I
waivers
think
by
that's
now?
already,
Shouldn't we have signed our waivers for
already
next year already?
so it would be in here already, yeah,
Because I didn't sign one, so I'm just asking,
right.
unless she's thinking. Open enrollment is. That's right. To the 30th, I think.
Yeah, so I don't, we have a list, Leo does have a list of all the plans, including the plans for the retirees. So we would have to see exactly, based on these new numbers, what the impact will be. And then make any changes that are needed before the adopted budget is adopted. Final budget is adopted, I should say. So the bottom line is that there needs to be more, we need to dig deeper into this, but I just want everyone to know that.
So I had some ideas which nobody is going to like, but I'm gonna throw it out there. I know that originally the raises for town employees, originally in the budget was 5% and you brought it back to 4%. I had said partially 2.5% this year, I understand it'd be 2.5% next year. Only because I mean, I know that everyone voluntarily gave up asking for raises during COVID. But then, we can't make it all up in 1 year. So I thought if we spread it over 2 years, that was just my thought that in 2025, everybody will have made that 5% jump in their salaries. That's just my thought, just to look for another area.
Yeah, just to give you to your point, so by dropping the salary 1%, it was 1/10 of a point, 1/10 of a percent change.
You mean
So-
bringing it down to 4% from 5%?
Right, yeah,
So if we bring it in half, we go to 2.5% versus,
So you, 1/10 is this, so it's
it
about,
was 1/10,
it's
so
about 65.
you're not talking about a major
Right.
impact to the taxes, so
No.
I wouldn't do that personally.
listen, the only
Yeah.
percentage I know as an attorney is 33 1/3, because that's the fee that you
Right.
take. Talk to me about percentages anywhere else, I gotta hear hard numbers. I'm
Yeah.
not good with figuring out percentages in my head,
Yeah.
I totally admit. So that's,
So yeah,
so it'd be about $6,500.
That's what it is, right, 6,500. Okay.
I could look at my other spreadsheet and tell you exactly what that number is. So if I go here, and so you wanted it to be 2.5%?
Yep.
So that basically equates to dropping the line or the salary amount by 23,283.
So that's more than 0.1%, that's more like 0.3%.
Well, if I make that adjustment here,
Like, because you
So,
said
right.
bringing it down to 4% was a savings of $9,000.
well, let's look at it now. So right now it's 4.34% is where we are with the current salary at
At
4%, right? Now, if I go back here
It's gonna be about 4.
and I introduce that number minus 23,283 to, that was in the supervisor line. 23,289, is that what I said? Ooh, 23,283.
No, I think
Oops,
you're missing
sorry.
0.
283. Okay, so we went from 4.34 to 4.138, so that's like a 2/10, not even 0.2%. Is it worth making that change? I say no.
I don't know, even if this was the difference between making the cap and not making it, I'm not excited about it. And it's not, so.
So
So could you put an adjustment, just an adjustment in it in the to the town board? I know it's not gonna make a huge difference, but if you put an adjustment of 31,165
Where?
hospital and medical benefits,
So,
right here, yes.
so you want me to
Minus
minus 31,165.
165. Are you going to,
Nope, I don't,
okay, so change that to 62330, this number. 62330.
Okay, so that takes us to 3.498 from 4.34, which is where we were, to 3.498.
That's the family plans for Andrea's and mine.
right, I know, I
because
waived the
we're
insurance.
declining
Yes, we're
the
declining.
health insurance.
So,
That's,
what numbers?
every little bit helps.
Okay,
Although I pay a lot at my
Where are we at now?
day job.
we are at 3.498. So to get down to the cap,
But
85,000.
is that with or without changing the salaries?
That's with the salaries at 4%.
Going back to the town board
Yeah,
on the. And that excludes us from that 4%, right?
right, that's
It was-
excluded.
So
That's
we're
zero.
holding flat.
That's what we were in.
That's the,
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
Well, we're not taking any raises, but we did put in for the supervisor to have a raise, the confidential secretary to have a raise and a stipend. And I still had DAPC on here. So between the.
And everyone else
DAPC
is getting raises and all the other stuff.
Right, I'm not saying no,
Yeah.
the town board doesn't take a raise, I'm not saying,
maybe you should consider,
Not taking a raise?
yes.
Me?
Yeah.
No. I wouldn't. The amount of work I put in. Yeah.
so you have both you and the confidential secretary position in it as a 4%,
Correct.
like everything else,
Mhm.
4% plus this type.
plus the stipend.
Correct.
So it's 80, so it's going from 74,850 to 83,600. So there any other?
74,860.
No, 74, yeah, yes, it was, right, I'm sorry, yeah, it was 74,850, no. With the column. Plus what was actually, was it the 5%?
74,850, okay.
It was 78,600 to 5. And then attacking on another 5, so that's 83. See, so, I think that the raises should be, like you're saying before, the employees, the raises should be kind of uniform across the board. You're giving a raise, significantly higher percentage raise for one employee as opposed to the other one.
It's a 4%, right?
No, there's no
And then
4,
it's a
no,
stipend for the extra.
No, well, it's a raise. I mean, nobody else is in, nobody else is getting, no one, are any of the employees getting a stipend?
Yes,
What other employees are getting a $5,000 stipend? That's new to this year.
well, it's not new, it's, there's a couple of other stipends that have been given in the past that are still in the budget.
Well, that, I'm saying, is
Yeah.
this the only new stipend for a town employee in Lewisboro?
And there's the webmaster, which I think Janet explained, was not reflected in the 2022, but it is in the 20. Is that correct?
It was 3,000 to bring her up to speed to where a new employee was hired last year at the same rate that Jen had been at for being here after
10 years, right?
So Leo suggested putting a stipend in, and then every year take 500 out of that stipend of
Mhm.
3,000 and put it into her salary. Right. So within 6 years, that stipend will be gone.
It's the same total amount.
So, oh, yeah,
It's
that's
just
right.
getting- It's just
Total
getting
amount,
over a
correct.
6-year period, you're
It's
taking the
just
total
allocated
amount.
differently.
Allocated differently.
Understood.
I was looking at the adopted budget of 2022 had 0. Now it's got 2,500.
No, it
But I
had
know-
3,000. The adopted had 3,000, should have been 3,000.
Just see if I can find that, actually.
And then this year would be 2,500.
I just want to know what the number would be if we took out another $11,000. We're still not going to be into 2%.
I got it.
Right, but I'm saying, I mean, where would 11,005 bring us? Bring us under the cap yet? Probably not.
No. For 80 out.
Would be about 0.14% or something like that.
Thank you. Again, not good with the numbers in here. I stick to what I know.
Maybe if we cut the plants budget in Parks and Rec from 2,000 to 1,000. That was something I saw as far as something.
Plants?
Wasn't the 2022 salary budget not
It's got $2,000.
reflective?
Oh, and plantings.
Yeah.
Okay.
But where we get the other 10,000, I don't.
Well, I can think of two things. We can cut 11,500. So,
Anyway, I would be that way.
Yeah, it should be in there.
I know.
And then
I know that Cindy said that she was gonna look and see if there was anywhere that they could squeeze money out of the 15,000 extra, but I don't know if she got back to you. That would probably just be nickels and dimes anyway.
You checking us on? Or not?
No.
Okay, so with the stipend, confidential secretary, it's 74,850. If you tack on the 4%, which would be 29,94 plus 5,000, it's 82,844. So that's in excess of a 9% increase.
Okay.
And that's more than double the increase that you're proposing for the rest of the town employees.
Mhm.
I think it should be uniform.
Or we could hire somebody to do the grants work. Because there's a lot of work involved with the grants that were.
Well, I mean, actually, that's something that was talked about years ago, whether if
Yeah.
there's on that point, if there was somebody that, and I was talking to somebody about that, I don't know. But if there's, for example, a grant writing with a company or person where it's essentially contingent. In other words, they get, going back to 33%.
Well, in some of the grants, the fee for the grant writers incorporated in. Some of them, it's not. So it depends on the grant that you're applying for. And I've never seen, I haven't looked into contracts with grant writers to see how it is that they get paid, whether they get paid hourly, whether they get paid contingency.
I know one that does a monthly fee and they're doing work for some other municipalities like Unrich, right? But there's still the municipality's responsibility to manage.
Well, they still have to get them the
The
information,
administration part of it.
Yeah,
well, to get them filed, not something, they're grant writers, they fill them out, they get all the information, they compile them, and it's up to the town to properly submit them in a timely
Correct.
fashion.
Is there a way we can do it with the part-time person that we were thinking about hiring for the control? Can that person?
That's interesting. Interesting thought, because we have that.
well, then
We
you're
have that
adding,
line
you're
item.
adding to that person's job responsibilities, right? So if
There's
they're-
no job description in there.
Yeah,
Yes, that's an opportunity for that once, based upon what we were talking about. Yeah, so that's, I mean, I think it's. I think all the town employees should be, treated the same as far as the increase. I mean, you made a good point with 4%.
Right.
I mean, I agree with that. And I think that should hold for everyone.
I think the town, we have a number of these places where we have stipends, and it has not been an uncommon practice when somebody's given a new, a new scope item, whether it be, managing a water district
Water
or
district, for
whatever it
example.
might be, to recognize that, even though theoretically the work week hasn't changed, but you're heading to their
So,
scope.
but again, as I was kind of making this point before, if there's no, that's what I was trying to get an answer to that. I don't know if I got a clear one, but if somebody says being arbitrary 10% more responsibility and they're committed to working 10% more hours, then.
But that's not what I just said, right?
Okay.
I just said that, like, they're getting these scopes, they're still, theoretically working a normal work week, but their job,
They've got more to do in the same amount of time is what they're
got
saying.
more to do, and they've got, new.
and at times there's not enough hours in the day to do that extra work.
Right, which is part of why, if you don't have, that's what I'm saying also, if you're giving it without the ability to do, adding to somebody's portfolio without the ability to get the additional stuff done, aside from just paying more money.
If it was a union spot, it'd be like, working out of my title or something,
Right.
and you've added this scope to me now, we're gonna.
But it's not.
Talk. It's not, that's right, but, the,
Same principle.
that's right, and we try to.
And like I said at the onset, it's, the employees are key to the operations of this town. We want to maintain them.
Of course, I
We don't
agree
wanna
with that,
have
except
them
you're giving
leave.
one employee over 9% increase as opposed to everybody else getting 4%.
Or I can hire somebody else to do the groundwork.
But does she have any specialty in grant stuff? She have any
She has-
specific training or experience in grant writing or securing?
The administration of, sure,
Well, the
the FEMA
administration,
grants,
the
guess who's doing
administration,
the FEMA grants that?
the
that we're working
administration
on?
meaning what?
Gathering all the data, putting them into the actual grant application
Okay.
and submitting it and staying on top of it. And
Yeah, but that's,
monitoring
there's
the
nothing,
things.
that part doesn't seem to be anything unique skill set.
So, Rich,
Associated from,
Yeah,
doesn't seem to be anything from a unique skill set as opposed to, for example, researching it and looking in particular areas and identifying it and applying. It's a different kind of
Right.
skill seemingly.
And still, I don't
it's-
understand why the grant committee isn't doing that work and then handing it, if Mary's gonna be involved, giving it to the confidential secretary to submit and do less work. The grant committee should be doing all the grunt work, and then, the administrative part still has to be done by a member of the town.
Right.
But that's, we need to
So-
take better advantage of.
we just got word, we got a letter today. In fact, I have it here to read during polling. Well, I was going to read during communications, but we didn't have communications, but I could read it during polling for the Bridge New York grant for the culverts. I'm going to need assistance with that, right? And Right now, the person that can help me with that is Mary.
What is nobody else?
Why?
in the
What is
town
she,
can
what is she
do it?
can do that somebody else in the
She's
town
gonna
can't?
take off, she's gonna go into the portal, log in, and of course, we're gonna need input from Kellett Sessions, we need input from Jan, for example, Jan Emerson, I spoke to her today about this.
What
For
does nobody-
COVID.
Does nobody, like, for example, when it comes to grants, like the police chief does stuff,
He
certain
does-
grants,
He does
highway
one
does
grant.
certain things as far as grants.
He does.
Parks and Rec, I
Yes.
think they do certain grants as well, right?
And then Mary, take like with the police car, she has the relationship with, or the follow-up with BASI, the New York State Dormitory Authority.
Right, but that's one section, whereas the legwork gets done by one person and Mary's got to do, let's say, the
Right.
input, for lack of a
Right.
better term. I mean,
I didn't,
there's,
I didn't.
Just making sure.
It's additional work that I have added to her plate. So like I said earlier, I want employees to be compensated accordingly. This is my way to compensate her. If you don't agree that that's the correct amount, and you rather we hire somebody to do that work, we can.
But you're not, I'm not hearing anything. First of all, it's just 2 points very simple.
Yeah.
It's giving her an increase more than twice what other town employees are being given. Because 9% is more than twice 4%.
Because of the added workload.
Well,
Just like everyone else who gets a stipend, it's the added work.
it's not, no, but this
right?
is a new one.
Correct, because I'm new and I've added this work and I've been adding a lot to her plate.
Right,
And I
well,
want to make
that's,
sure she's fairly compensated. And that I still have somebody that can support me going forward while I'm in this job.
well.
You spoke earlier about supporting employees and understanding why people leave and things like that. We had a discussion.
That's
about
right,
people
which is
leaving.
right, well, then
So-
it's hard, you're making the argument that one person deserves more than twice as much as anybody else in town. That's the argument you're
Or
making.
the specific additional,
I'm not saying it's not, I'm
added-
not saying it's not a reason.
so that's my position. You're
Well, I mean,
you're nitpicking as to why she doesn't deserve it.
I know, I'm not, no, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not,
okay.
I'm not, the deserving,
Yeah.
didn't come into anything.
Yeah.
It's a
No.
matter of, the-
our employees deserve a lot more than what they're getting.
Absolutely.
That's not,
Right.
we're not debating
So
whether
that's
or not
why
they deserve it.
I, you know,
Question is,
4%,
can we
you wanted
afford
to
it?
give them 2%.
Correct.
I would have never thought of 2%. So I
I
think
was thinking 2.5% this year,
Okay.
2.5% next year for a
that doesn't
total of
help
5%.
them this year.
I have a new item we're gonna come to based upon my
Okay.
homework project. The Justice Court.
Okay,
Okay, I've spoken to many people.
many people,
Yes,
meaning,
meaning probably 7.
Okay.
People who
Okay.
are involved in the courts, including people who work in the courts, people who go to the courts.
right,
Just
Yeah.
to get a sense of it. And first of all, as I learned later today, seemingly the extra hours part is
Mhm.
actually nights, and I didn't get confirmation on this, is actually night court hours. So seemingly that's what it is. And that one of the things I asked for, because the time was short, one of the things, and I did not get, which would be, I asked for, I don't know if it's a way to necessarily get it quickly, to find out what the clerks make all in 2020, for the 2020 and 2020 year, because what they make in total, their W-2, which would reflect what they actually have earned based upon the needs of the court.
right.
So, the way it's broken down here doesn't really read that way. So I think that, at least half of the extra hours component could be cut out.
Okay.
And I think there's an argument.
Based on
So-
the actual, the way they're running,
Yes,
or
yes.
based on what you think they could run? In other words, like, based on the W-2s that you looked at?
I didn't look at the W-2s.
Or-
I didn't get that
okay.
information.
So just to add to what you're saying,
Well, I'll just finish I'll finish
Yeah.
my point based on what I said. So, on that point, the court is open 8:30 to 4:30, the regular hours, including now, so it's 35 hours. One point that could be done from an efficiency standpoint, based upon people who have actually even worked at the court years ago, is that you can have one person alternate as far as who does the night court. It doesn't have to be two people for the entire time.
Right.
That's one part of it. Another component of it is you could adjust the hours. For example, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday's a busy day because that's court. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are not. It's open 8:30. There's people that stagger in during the course of the day to do their business, which is great. It should be a service out to the community. But two full-time people, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that's a point. It's a matter of just, shuffling, really.
Right.
A third point in that is reducing or making sure that by and large, you have two court nights a month. One, which is town stuff. I'm sorry, one which is criminal stuff.
Criminal,
And the other which is town.
which is a requirement.
Yes, yeah, which is
by law.
And the other which is VTL slash town stuff. And there may be, for example, an unusual circumstance or with that you may need to add an extra over the course of the year here and again. So I think that's
Well,
an
as it is,
opportunity.
there's two criminal court nights per month. And then the other two are civil.
There's not four, there's not four a month. No, there's two or three.
There's
a
two
month.
criminal,
No.
Yeah.
Should be one.
I spoke to Robin this morning. She
Yeah.
said that there's two criminal every other week.
Yeah, a month. There's
A
two
month.
criminal courts. Two
By
criminal
law,
court
they
nights.
have to have two criminal.
By law, they have to have two each month. I don't think that that's the
But
case.
probably by Office of Court Administration.
No, that's not anything that I've heard. And I didn't speak directly with Robin.
No,
Okay.
but I know from practicing locally that the criminal court is open twice a month. And the judges historically have alternated months. So one judge will do 1 month, one judge will do another month, but it's two
It's-
criminal court calendars.
Right.
Can I just interject something here?
Please.
Sure.
This is a pretty significant separation of powers issue here. The town board doesn't have any say in the day-to-day operations of the court. You set their budget. So you would be asking, but you couldn't be directing the times of court, the days of court,
Understood.
under that effect. And they do have to meet twice a month as a bare minimum. But there's an area you're treading that is problematic because that's the judicial branch and you're a legislative body. So in terms of
Yeah, just budgetary. It's not a matter of managing or that's their
Right.
business.
Right,
By Office
But
of
if
Court
you're-
Administration.
I don't think there's anything.
if you're telling them that they have to have courts on certain, or they can't have courts at certain times, that you're not in a position where you're able to do that.
No, not directing them at all. I agree with you. I'm just saying.
Oh,
that.
okay.
I'm just looking at, I'm not in that direction. It's only looking as far as.
Certainly can ask them for cooperation on court nights, OT, doing day court as opposed to night, and that gets you out of OT. I just want to be clear that.
Yeah, it's just on the fiscal aspect of it. How they make it happen is up to them.
Okay.
So also another thing is the fact that if you have a third, this is an ancillary cost. If you have a third, night court during the course of a month, each time you have it, you have 3 police officers that have to be there. From a security standpoint.
Two.
For criminal nights, you need the two that operate the metal detector. They're there, and then you have the court officer, the one standing in the courtroom.
Rooms two. Again, from speaking to Robin. One in the hallway, a metal detector, one inside.
Mhm.
I think it's total 3.
Usually I go, there's two, usually,
Yeah.
and not saying
Okay.
always, but
Well,
usually there's
yeah,
two outside.
The point is, if you have,
One in the
if you have a third night court, you have an ancillary cost to the police as opposed to getting it done in 2. And I think that it should be able to do that way. And there's not, and my also understanding is that the preparation, and this ties into having one person or alternating the night court, not having 2 people there for the whole time or part of it. My understanding is that the prep work can be done during the course of the day. For the court, all the paperwork is done.
Right.
And in preparation for the judges. And this mean, I've spoken to actually the judges, both judges, complimentary of the work that's done and all that stuff and preparing them for court. And that's all
Right.
given in this conversation. That's all given. So, but I just think that there's, taking
So what are you gonna do? What's your point?
$7,500 out.
The overtime? So the extra hours.
Because you also have the line, you also have the court clerks. I'm not, this should be 2 full-time law clerks. They should get the increase of 4%. They also have the longevity, and it's cutting a portion of the extra hour. That's what.
So Robin did, I asked her about that number today, so she
Yes,
shared
about
with
what
me
number?
about the 15,000.
Okay, well, which I would have known that, because that's why I was charging going back and get that. Okay.
Yeah, so I decided to have because I had a note here from our prior meeting. I know you're gonna follow up, but I wanted to ask her
That's what I'm
specifically.
reporting back on.
Right.
Oh,
You didn't speak to Robin, or who'd you speak to?
well, I spoke to a bunch of people. I don't know if
Okay.
they wouldn't necessarily want me
So I
to tell
spoke to
who I
Robin,
spoke
being
to.
that she's the head person there, and person more seniority. And she gave me, in terms of hours, what they've done this year for that extra hours, 340 hours. So now I need to equate that. She couldn't equate that to a dollar figure because it's based on the salary of both people.
Right, and then
So if we take that
but did she tell
340
you was she able to tell you what her actual W-2 income was for 2020 and 2021?
No,
She
I
should
didn't
have
ask
that
her.
information.
I didn't ask
That would be the easiest way to convert it with.
Yeah, well, between her and Samantha's.
No, but hers, I mean, you're dividing it by 2. If she said, this is what I made in 2020, this is what I made in
I
2021.
didn't ask her. This was an email after I had a phone conversation, she sent me an email.
I
saying
don't think
did
they
20
make
hours.
the same,
They don't make the same.
they don't make.
No, I know, but that means it would be more than that. In other words, what Robin would be more than that. If you doubled that, that would be room. That would be the actual
So,
cost
yeah.
for the court clerks to do the
Right.
job in the position. You
Right.
know what it actually is.
So I didn't ask her what her hourly salary was, no, so I
Not
don't.
hourly, not hourly, just a wage, what she earned for the year.
Okay.
That would address it very simply,
Okay.
and I raised this today, so.
Yeah,
we can talk
so,
about what the
so I got that
evening-
information this afternoon. I didn't take it further, but I will do that. Because I want to see how that compares to the $15,000 number.
Well, I can,
But
I can get that, all she has to do is send me that, I can reach out to her, that's fine.
Okay. But you're recommending reducing that number by how much?
7,500.
Because you don't
Okay.
think they need 2 court clerks there and in those night sessions.
I think there's an opportunity to just to have 2 night sessions a month. And then to do what needs to be done. This is what law enforcement people have told me in the town who were there, several people. And the work that can be done, which is also they have, full time during the day.
But to Greg's earlier point, Greg, is that something that we can make that recommendation?
No, just the budget.
No, it's just a budget.
So we're just saying,
How they execute on it, so they do it.
I mean, if you're setting their budget, but how they use their budget and whether they exceed it or not is, that's going to depend on how the mechanics of the day-to-day work.
so we can change that number to that line to 7,500, but they can go ahead and exceed it.
I mean, your role is to set their budget,
Yeah.
okay? And how they use that money within the budget is largely, there are lines that obviously are dedicated. The compensation line is the compensation line. But if your overtime line is, $500 for the year and there's $5,000 worth of overtime, they still need to be paid. They can't not be paid.
I'm reluctant to touch.
I hesitate in cutting it as well.
I mean, I think that's more of a conversation you have with the judges and the clerks and how you prefer them to run it.
Without having the judge come
Yeah.
here and talk.
I have that.
No, I
So what else?
To run it.
So what you can do if you want to
So
pursue.
the costs
take
are
the-
kept, in a certain range. And I think it's like I said, that's a possibility, but it's not a mandate you can dictate. You can just set the budget and see if, they're able to work within it.
So we could take that number she gave me, 340 hours, calculate what that translates to.
Well, what is that,
Salary-wise.
340 hours, what does that establish?
How many hours they did in
Thus
overtime
far,
this
this
year?
year.
So it's equivalent to something a little bit less than 20% of a FTE full time.
And they
2,000
went from part-time part back to, I mean, full-time. So it's, you know, from COVID to now, they've gradually, from the beginning of this year to now, I think they're meeting more frequently, whereas before, and they're spread out too, because they were limiting the number of people that were coming in. So it was,
Don't they have a backlog they're looking through as well?
I don't know.
No,
That I don't know.
does not seem to be an issue. So, you know, it would be interesting also now during, because as far as that's why I was asking, talking about 2020 and 2021.
Mhm.
Because if they were working the same hours as 2020, as 2021, the court was physically closed for an extended period of time.
Mhm.
It should be less 2020 than 2021.
Right.
Because for all the reasons that, you know, for what COVID.
Yeah.
Including less VTL
Mhm.
tickets, less traffic, less. A
Right.
whole bunch of stuff. So
Well,
that's part of
Right,
the
but they
reason.
were
So wait,
still,
wait.
they had to catch up with all the tickets that were given out before COVID. There was a whole
Well,
year where they didn't do any, well, not that they didn't do anything, but they weren't taking care of those tickets, and then they had to pick up.
Do we want to look at
I mean-
2020, what that line was? We can.
Well, we
It's on the
also,
website where
can
they-
we calculate what the actual expenditure based upon the gray line, what it was? When you have that number, right?
Gray line.
Which you had from last meeting.
Well, that was
the actual,
that's the salary.
the actual, right? Yeah.
10,550.
And that's
You're
for,
killing me with this.
Court clerks.
well, do we know what
His
it was?
eyebrows going
Do we
up.
know what it was for the prior years, the 110? Retirees?
I don't have that info.
It's on the website. You want to pull up the past years?
But it's not
Yes.
searchable, though, so.
Yeah, it's not
Find
circular.
our slide.
Oh. Should be towards the top.
Yeah,
30
okay,
lines in.
okay. This is court extra hours. In 2020. That's 2019, it's $3,000.
In 2019,
And for the 2020 budget,
3,000.
yeah,
And the other thing that's changed is the plea by mail, right? So that's reduced.
Need for in-person court.
Yeah.
And that's also stuff that can be taken care of. During the time when there's less foot traffic during the course of the day.
Yeah.
What do you think if we, instead of cutting it in half, cut it to 10,000?
I mean, I'll,
It was only $3,000 in 2019.
looks that way.
what was it for
So you would
2020?
think-
Oh, wait.
Was that the?
You're looking at
Oh,
longevity.
Look at longevity,
Okay, I was like, that makes more
Sorry.
sense.
Yeah,
the
so the longevity.
15,000.
It's 15,000. It hasn't changed.
I mean, there was also, I mean,
Yeah.
it's different now, but there was also a time when, there, you know, a while, for a long time ago, sure, that there was one person. There was one full-time. And I'm not saying that should be the case, it should be 2 full-time clerks. And there should be 2 times for night court. And nobody that I spoke to who's involved in it has said that the court can't operate efficiently and effectively in that way. Not one person said, no, we have to have all this time. Nobody said that. And nobody was, so. Not one person. One person said that 2 nights a month wouldn't satisfy what the docket is and the need.
But again, we don't get to determine
No, not
that.
I'm
They have to meet the requirements.
No,
of
I'm just, no,
Office
but
of
I'm saying,
Administration. They have to do certain things. I just, and they haven't changed that number for years. So that number is based on something. They're not looking for more for extra hours. I don't know, I'm reluctant to change it. Sorry, I know you're really trying.
It's, I'm still, it's 2 full-time clerks, they should get the increases all town employees are doing.
So
Anything
I would
else?
say, let's figure out what the 340 hours translate to. And let's use that number for 2023 and.
But the 340 hours doesn't necessarily mean there's a need for 3. That means what they will work.
Correct, right.
And does that mean 340 hours? Does that also mean that I'm sorry. Does that mean the 340, that's the 340 person hours, which means, for example, 2 clerks may have been working at the night court at the same time?
I don't always do that.
Well, I'm not saying they always do, but I'm just saying it's
Yeah,
the,
that's-
I'm saying that,
Yeah, they wouldn't do
I'm
that.
saying that, well,
Yeah.
no, why are you saying that?
Why would you have 2 clerks at night?
I don't, that's what I'm saying. So what's comprising the 340?
340 is the total number of hours.
Yeah. that was-
Because one person does the paperwork and the other person takes the money.
So
Just
if that-
FYI.
If that's less than.
But the
a little
paperwork,
Less than 20% of a full timer. And in the one, say 16 is 2 full timers. They're saying 20% of 58,000, which is 12,000.
I'm only saying 7,500. I'm not saying it's that much.
I'm saying it would come to 12,000
12,000. As opposed to
instead of.
15.
Oh, okay, right.
So that's only $3,000 saving. Adjustment.
Estimated hours for 2 people for 2022 court. The 2022 court hours is 340. 2 people.
Oh,
Total.
but, a year, then. A year is a 2,000 hour year, roughly.
Well, that's just the 300, that's just the court hour part. That's over and above the full-time position during the tech. So that's,
So,
so if the court, and if a court, if it's roughly between 2 and 3 hours on average, could be more, could be less.
Right.
So you're talking about, 125, 140 days of 2 people.
so I'll tell you what, so why don't.
That just seems like a lot.
Right, I mean, we have time to review this with the court clerks.
I spoke to one of them.
Yeah, maybe speak to the other one. And then we can always make any, adjustments. I think at this point, we can make a recommendation based on.
Well, it's not a recommendation on how they do it, it's a budgetary issue, and that's all it is.
Right,
So-
recommendation on the budget, that's what I mean.
Well, it's not a recommendation, but it's enacting the budget.
$12,000.
Correct, yes, and then, yes, fine, and it's, what they say.
You go to.
I mean, we can just. Put in a number, but I think we need to get their feedback.
I did, I told you, I talked to 6 or 7 people as far as getting the feedback, the things that I'm coming to, I didn't just come to, randomly, I just
Yeah.
came based upon speaking to multiple people who were working.
Would you feel comfortable instead of putting in 7,500 to put it in $10,000? That way we've got a little bit of room.
Fine, okay, that's all right, we did 10,000.
So subtract out 5,000.
Yes,
Extra hours.
up one, there you go. And that puts us for the tax cap.
Is everybody okay with that, with the, just reducing 10,000?
kind of, not really, but
I'm not, but, okay.
5,000 is 5,000.
Yes, 5,000 is 5,000, I just,
So what's our, where were we
I
at?
mean,
We're at 3.425.
What's the number to
80,341.
$80,000.
Can I just,
Yes, can we go, unless you're in the middle of thinking something, I just had another note. Taking a look at the mortgage on the revenue side, the
well, that
mortgage
was something
tax.
I wanted to.
I know this, I think maybe I got it from an email that you had forwarded.
Yeah, so this is where we are. We're at 740,726.
I'm sorry, say again?
$740,000. $740,726.
That's mortgage tax.
Tax.
And do we get, and when do when do those payments come? Twice a year, is it? Like April and December? Everywhere. I have no idea.
I think you're right. I think it's February. I think it's the beginning of the year.
So 740, that's where were we, what did we do last year? In the last couple of years, please. Compared to 20,
We had 800,000
2021.
2022, so are we on track for that? Yeah, I'd say so. Even more, we should exceed that.
So what did we do last year?
2021, I don't know. Is that on your, oh, no, you wouldn't have that, the actuals for, no. I don't know.
740 is
Through October.
So you're putting 650 for 29.
So that we only have.
And this is based on information from our assessor.
So I don't know if this is part of
So-
the email to you, that maybe is the 650 to put to 700 overly rosy on that?
Say it again?
For 2023, you put that to 700 in the projection, which is down only 14% from this year, which was probably down from 2021.
Yeah, we're gonna be down. We've kind of, I think we've leveled off.
No, but it's
Yeah.
right, so and what I'm saying, I'm assuming 2021, I'm sure was higher on the mortgage tax, right? And then
You let somebody like Greg.
I did.
Oh.
and then 800, so if we go to 650 to 7, that's a projection of down 14%, 2022 into 2023, as opposed to
And did we mark down the?
the numbers, like you said before, like.
The other thing is he mentioned the increase of building department revenue about $50,000. So that would be another, so that would be $100,000 of increased revenue.
Right, but isn't that the building department?
No, building department revenue is already marked in.
Yes,
Plus you also,
he said those are the changes that he had already made.
Okay.
plus
Okay.
you're, and you're also cutting into the cut with the company. So if you move that to 700 mortgage tax,
I think we were a little bit less optimistic about it.
Right.
So
so
get some.
yeah, so if you, let's see at the mortgage tax, if you moved it to 675 and 700, so what that looks like.
Oh,
675.
And then we're gonna tilt forward.
3.087, so we're 55,341.
How about
So
the
I-
700?
So I have, okay,
You had one.
I have a thought about it, this is mine, but.
Did you, and you all, just to confirm, what everybody just told me, you already marked in the additional $50,000 in building department revenue.
Correct, it should be here.
which is, this is,
Yeah, that's here,
Yeah.
50,000. right there.
so 700, so 700 would be.
And 7.9. Both by about 30,000. So here's my idea, getting back to the police budget. If we're looking to do that SLE as a
Pilot
As a
program
pilot.
thing.
for that quarter, the pilot cost is 750. Why don't we put back in the 35,000, take out 35,000 for that line, and use $8,000 from the general fund for the pilot. Reserve, which is the general fund. We're not talking about a large number. Right?
But that 8,000 is not going to make up that 30,000.
No, but the 35,000 will. So
We
we
didn't-
did, oh, wait a minute, we did.
We already
did-
took it out,
Yeah. But that brings us, oh, you're right. Hold on a second.
No, if we were able to.
The 35 was
increase
still
the
in there, you'd be right.
Donations for Parks and Recs. From 15 to 50, that would do it. But I don't know
We just take
how
out the,
we,
take
how
out
we
the,
would do that.
so we, the homework, so I was talking about,
I worked my, you know what, off getting those donations for the fireworks.
Let's take up this 6.5 there.
Yeah, we did.
so
So-
take the,
Oh, 35?
No.
no,
No.
so you got the 30, you're at the 30 now, right? You're at 30, right?
Yeah, 30,
Right.
right.
So. Right, so take the stipend, move the 5 to 4 and take out 30, and there you go.
What? Say again?
Take the
My
confidential
brain- my brain
secretary
is slowing down.
stipend from 5 to 4 is 1,000, take out the 30. From general fund and they're under the cap.
So let me.
You move chapters.
Just take it, this instead of 5,000, right, 5,000 to 4. Then you take out 30 grand. From the
Okay.
general fund.
Oh, take out 30 grand from the general fund, for this
Mm.
contingency. How about that?
What's that sound?
That was Andrew.
That was me. I was grunting. I didn't like that idea.
Oh, no, I thought there was actual,
No,
Wind,
So,
yeah,
that's the wind.
oh, okay.
Said it was gonna whip it up tonight. Yeah.
so I think that's, it's a one time, I was talking about it before, and also, in light of that, because I was thinking also say, well, it's not. That much money, because we just had a presentation by Lisa was talking about. The legislation which we're gonna put in from 2023, like for our seniors, right? And the amount of, she was talking about how important that legislation was. I think she was talking about 50 people, and then she was talking about something about close to 200, where that's making a difference. She was strongly recommending we do that, like other municipalities in the county. So every dollar seems to count. So
Right.
that gets, based upon the amount of dollars that she was talking about.
so why don't we, yeah. So we have some time to think through that, for example, that what you're just saying.
That was before up to 150, so now it's down to 30.
So why don't we take a vote on this? And then we can make some more adjustments. For example, within the week. We have until the 20th. We should try to get whatever.
Well, don't we have to have?
Because the other
something?
thing I want to look into is it's the impact of the health or the medical.
We have to see if it fits within the 115.
Correct.
If it's under the 115 and whatever below that, you can
Right.
take a few shekels from there.
Right.
I still would like to see, sadly, the DAPC line go. It's been 3 years. I think that's sufficient
Has
time.
anyone spoken to anyone at the agency's last meeting?
I didn't even know that you had the conversations. I was kind of stunned last time because I've been asking and
Yeah. Well, and didn't we just get an email today?
Well,
about
this email I
the-
forwarded to you
Right, you forwarded the email to them,
Yeah, was it today?
saying they wanted to change
Well,
what
no,
it looked
there was a
like,
new person.
yeah,
You're interviewing for a new person to run.
right,
the
they
program.
still don't have a new person, they were voting on the new logo, and they did a vote at one
But if they don't
school and
use the
not the
money,
other.
it's still there. It's not money that's lost, right? I mean, it's still there, the 6,500 that we put into it.
We put in, but my point was, we paid for the past 3 years, 6,500, that's what we discussed, you know, I think it was February, we were talking about it. And we saw no benefit in our town, so that's $13,000 those years that was out the window.
Yeah.
And now, you know, we're looking for a third year, and it's
What's-
$6,500.
What's the cap? And
A lot of money.
It's 2.62.
I just want to say, yes, to getting rid of the.
Dan, if we used it,
No, I understand that, but there's, you know, not a day goes by when you don't, hear about or read about the fact that, you know, in today's, you know, high pressure, COVID, economy, whatever events that, you know, mental health and substance abuse, all those are very serious problems. By getting rid of it, you're like giving up on that.
it's been 3 years, and during the height of all these problems, we got no use out of the program, and we threw money at a program that no one got the benefit of.
No, that's not true. Somebody got the benefit.
There was programming that was in place. I think I shared that with the board.
Right, there was programming
Maybe
in
not
place.
locally, I think it was when it collaborated in 2019. That was the last one that was here in town. But there have been programs in Bedford that were,
And
Lewisboro was invited to.
So
But they don't know about, and that's the problem.
So
That
we're
was the
So that's
problem.
So.
I totally agree with everything that Dan just said. I'm just, I want a program that works, and this hasn't worked for us. That's all.
Well, so I think it was you and Mary, right, that are supposed to be the liaisons to the APC. Let's
We
make
were
it
supposed to get involved with the school district to find out why it was that they weren't engaging and distributing the information within the school district.
But that's, but that doesn't, I think one of your concerns is there are no programs in town.
Right, and we
Right,
put
so
off
that's
a lot
aside from
of,
the school
a lot of what we were doing because they were in transition.
Right.
And they were changing, and we were dealing with a nice woman that gave the description back at the beginning of the year as to what the program stood for and all of that. And they were,
the new member
And
gathering as well.
yes.
taking a macro moment, anecdotally and speaking to other supervisors, where are other municipalities targeting coming in? I don't know if it's early in the process, mid-process. I don't know if anybody's. adopted
They're
anything.
all looking to be at the cap. Or even below the cap.
Yep.
Yeah, the ones that I've heard from, because there was an email that went, plus supervisors group, they're pretty much all staying at or below the cap.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that was a good question.
That was,
Okay.
would you like my answer?
Yeah, well, I don't know what the answer was. Actually, I had no idea what the answer was.
So, all right, so
Are you
moving on.
okay? Going back, are we okay with cutting the stipend from 5,000 to 4,000?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so did you mark that adjustment?
I did.
Okay, and so.
And then I'll even do an adjustment on my salary, so we can get a little bit, I'll look at doing that. We'll have to see.
Seeing as how some of us are not taking a raise. and
No, the 4%, I
we're
think the
going
4%,
with
that's,
insurance, I appreciate your considering.
I'm okay with the 4%. Your town employee.
Yeah, but I
Think about it.
I will, as needed, I'll make that adjustment to make it work. That's the number we want to be at. So based on that, we want to go ahead and approve this as the preliminary budget.
So what do we, so we incorporated the 5 and reduced the stipend by 1, so that's where
Incorporated the 5.
No, it's 4%.
No. The 5 reduction, you're talking about including the 5 reduction from the Justice Court. Like Mary suggested.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
that's,
the 1,000 reduction in the stipend from 5 to 4.
yes.
Okay.
The only issue I have with the library budget is that their office supplies went up almost 20%. Office supplies, I know they're expensive. I have to pull it up, I marked down the percentage that it went up.
The thing goes in that one like a.
Yeah, but that's not
They are
gonna
more
be-
expensive. No, it's not gonna be.
That's not gonna
Nope.
make a big
Nope,
impact.
it's
so
not.
I
It's
wouldn't
not,
even-
nope, not going there.
Nope.
It's been a long time since I get school supplies.
Speaking of someone who buys office supplies on a regular basis for her day job, they are going.
They are going up, I know.
Paper and stuff.
It's just obscene.
Do you wanna talk to Cindy? She raised her hand.
Oh, sure, let's have, yeah.
Did you?
Yes,
Cindy?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Yep, I just wanted to comment about the office supplies in our original budget that we submitted to you. We were recombining some expense lines. So when COVID started, we had a separate line for COVID. And really what remains of that is increased cleaning costs because the cleaning company has incorporated that into their regular cleaning now. So we got rid of the COVID line and switched that over to the office expense. That goes in custodian and maintenance.
Yep.
But there was, I don't have it in front of me, but it's going up that much because we recombined expense lines.
Understood. I see that the custodial line went up almost 20% and the office supplies went up almost 18%. And you said that's reflective of the cost from now the additional supplies needed and the custodial services required to keep up with the new regimen.
Yeah, we got rid of the COVID line and recombined it into those two lines. That's why it
Understood.
went up that much.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
So the COVID line, Cindy purchased that,
Plexiglass.
The glass, yes.
Yeah.
right, okay.
But now we're down to the expenses of what PPE we need and cleaning and that type of thing. That's all that remains.
We need to repurpose all the plexiglass that the town bought and figure out.
Well, we're still using it all.
Okay.
That, I mean, don't.
Thank you.
Give it away yet.
Yeah.
No.
Once you
Okay,
be
so-
safe, Cindy.
So let's move on.
Okay.
Um, So
Did you take out that $5,000 from the court? Okay.
I just want to verify again the mortgage,
We've got that at 700.
700,000. I'd like to talk to the assessor about that, but we'll leave it in.
Okay.
I think it's too optimistic.
Actually, I just based on a conversation we had earlier with that person that the town that we were interviewing. They kept their number I think, slightly higher.
You know, this is,
That was
yeah,
interesting.
this is a 14%, this is a 14% reduction.
Yeah, yeah, but it's higher
Okay,
than
so
so
how are we under the tax?
No, I think
we're
we're about
close.
28.
2.62, so we're 110.11%.
So where's the,
How much is it?
so we're 37, is that 37 away? Is that which number we're looking at?
29,265. According to this spreadsheet, so I'll verify that, but that's the spreadsheet's working like it should, that should be. the number.
So we have to.
So you want a motion to adopt as the,
As a preliminary budget.
and where, and so that's 227.
2.734.
2734.
I'll move to adopt.
Or a second.
This is tough. Some things I agree with, some things I don't.
Yeah.
Keep in
But
mind,
I know.
keep in mind that we still have time to make adjustments.
Yes.
Correct, Greg, so it's December 20th?
But this is the one that's
So you adopt
default
it.
one, and this is this is the default one, the one that goes to the
Correct.
public hearing.
Correct.
Right, but if we have any adjustments that we can present at the onset of that meeting, I say. you can-
Understood. But this is our default, so this is this is which is what you were concerned about, so now our.
Now I'm
default
much
is
better.
27.
I'm feeling much better.
I second.
Roll call, Greg,
Yeah, absolutely.
Discussion.
discussion.
So.
Didn't we just discuss it?
Not told that 2% tax cap to be a holy sacrament. And a budget is budget to be what it needs to be. And we spend an awful lot of time focusing on that number as if that was the job and not budgeting for, town works. And I've been through 15 years of these. And always like this, when we're scrabbling to get that last percent. We had a few years where we busted the cap, but it reminds me of coming in 2008 after 10 years of always, back then it was like 0% increase with the goal, and then like, so we come in and like the furniture's burned, and like now and your employees are focused, like we're running this place like. And then the crisis happens and like we get locked in. We happen to have a surplus now, so.
Yeah.
To work with that, but I just want to say like, we have, nobody wants to talk about the roads, a few other things. That it's like, I'll vote it through, but I don't particularly like this budget, and I don't like what you approached it or general philosophy.
Is there concern the increase in the revenue lines?
No,
Or-
it's like,
Or not?
we're already working off whether it be, the highway department, like, well, we don't really have the staff we need. Like, that's because we've been doing this year after year. Every year we find a place where okay, well, maybe we'll cut that back a little bit, And so trouble to stick with it, but like I said, roads, we don't have the composting. Not in here or it's in here, I don't know. It's like an exercise in your misery that doesn't have to feel that way. And $80,000, say just using a benchmark here, that's a percent, right? Something like that. Roughly. $80,000 is $20 for the household for their annual taxes, which is of course, relative to the shift in the school budget or something, it's less. And so it's absolutely trivial. So I'll vote it through. I hope we have more questions.
I know you were hoping to put like 150 into roads, right?
Because I consider that.
Well, let's see, what if we did that? Let's see what the impact would be now.
It would add 2%.
2.25%. We'll probably take it up to 5.3 or so, I would guess.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the higher one. So if you're saying the road resurfacing?
Yeah.
So if we adjust that up by 150,000?
Right, road resurfacing and paving, right? Not the road repair and maintenance line.
Right.
4.762.
Well, why can't we, isn't that,
So-
why can't, I'm picking up on that point and then work this through and, listen to what Dan said. Why can't, it's an infrastructure aspect of it, right?
Well, so
I mean-
as an accounting thing, it's a capital item, and people played with that in the past, saying, oh, it's capital, we ought to bond for it. It's not really capital, if you think about it as an operating thing.
Like-
Well, this is a capital or infrastructure, so this is on our circling back to ARPA. So-
I would do it anyway, because again, it's, the problem is the hole in the budget.
Right.
It's the hole that comes back year.
Year to year.
This is a maintenance issue.
Put, surplus money in there, no problem, the hole would remain.
Well, then we should go back to what we were talking about in Leo's presentation, as far as in 2023, the fact that the debt service goes down, I think was in excess of $200,000. And if we had a cost of, say, what would $100,000 take half that? I'm going from memory. ballpark it.
No, I didn't get that. I was gonna get that, but I.
So when the debt service in 2023, say, reduces by, again, I'm going from rough memory, say north or south of $250,000.
Right.
Let's say you
Oh, well,
then you took let's say whatever $100,000 in payment, what would that result over 15 or 20 years in the current interest rate? Because then you could do more, so you wouldn't have an issue referable to the budget. And you'd be addressing it from more a long-term aspect like you're talking about.
Well, I was thinking, if you know you're gonna come into $150,000 next year in reduced debt service, then, if you, to make this budget work, you'd still have to, you put it in and, take it out of surplus or something. And then next year, not do that with the surplus.
Okay,
So,
so what
which
if,
would be okay.
But I mean, over the 50, I mean, this is back to the time you were talking about the 96 miles and the 6 miles a year and the 15 or so years.
Right.
So what would the cost be from the debt service standpoint now, which we don't know in light of the interest rates what they are, but we have, because of our fund balance, we should have a significantly better credit rating. Than
We have a
did.
good credit rating.
Okay, so the question is, what would the cost be to actually take care of it for and set it on the generational plan to take care of it?
I'm completely against using long-term debt for this because it hides where we are in our road management program.
It's not hiding where we are. It's
does.
it's spending money.
People don't read it as part of the road maintenance. We really need like pretty much 6 miles times $140,000, right, per mile is what the budget should be.
rather than putting.
But that's
Let Larry finish your thought.
All bonding does is it pushes it out to the future for somebody else in the future to pay for it.
Rather than putting the full $150,000 in, would you feel comfortable easing it in? Starting, having.
I thought the 150 was easy, because as I just said, if you're gonna fully fund it, it'd be 6 times $140,000 per mile, equals $840,000, right? So that's how far we're up. So 150 is
Easy.
easy. All right.
so then where are you proposing taking it from? You said where you don't want to take it from. Where are you proposing taking it?
Lewisboro
That's tax increase. That's the
Because
4.76.
it was sliced back when we were, as you said, just cutting everything to the bottom dropped in. But that's.
What, she's
I mean-
saying we gotta start somewhere. So if you added into the budget $150,000 this year, then next year you increase a little more, and the next year you increase a little more until you build it
What
up.
we did to try to restore the.
There's, I guess, standards in highway, whatever it is, as far as the conditions of, I mean, I don't know.
That was the
about it.
Cornell study.
But what are the
Yeah,
conditions, what are the conditions of our road vis-a-vis other places?
Pictures and stretches of road, characterizations of different levels of degradation, what types of treatment could be, most effectively used in each case. And it was, it starts to get complicated, because they say there's an opportunity, once you get close to where you're supposed to be, to start to actually bring your costs down, because you're starting to say, hey, these roads that were paved 5 years ago are starting to show these little cracks. You can do just a ceiling on that, and these roads could do a micro, pave or whatever. And then you get an extra 10 years for only, $30,000. And your total cost starts to come down. You can't do that
So
when
Mr.
you're just pre-op.
So Mr. Cost per household guy, what does that equate to? 150 per household?
4,000. 40.
So, I mean, I think, it's food for thought, so I think we had a vote in the second,
Well, here's-
preliminary, and
So
then,
we're discussion mode and then.
Yeah. No, but I'm not, I think that what I'd like to do is to vote on the preliminary, what we had.
Sure.
And then people have heard the discussion, people should just let us know what they think, because
That'd be great.
we're kind of putting it out there to, here's something, okay, for another $40 per household, is this something that you as townspeople who we represent feel it's a good,
And,
Yeah,
and remember,
and we're essentially setting a dedicated.
in addition to the
Expensive.
roads, the highway also needs 2 new trucks. That's something
And
else.
just get back to your point about how much per household. So if we go back to where we were, it's $25.70 per thousand. Right?
That's the number,
Putting in-
preliminary, yeah.
Putting in the 150 that Dan just mentioned, that number goes up to $26.21 per thousand.
1,000 of assessed value or whatever.
Right, it's less than $1. So it's less than $1, so a house.
All right, so I thought-
That's $100.
So we should adopt the preliminary to 2.7, and then people should let us know, and also in light of, we have a scheduled public hearing for December 5. And people should certainly chime in as to whether they think that's a good expenditure. So they could basically laying out the option, which is something we haven't done. We're laying out 2 options, like, here's something we have very close to the cap, and we could probably squeeze it and find a 29, I think. Or if you want to invest in roads and put us on a plan, we're gonna set this in progress
You
going
mentioned the
forward.
vehicles. I think that's another place where it's kind of long ago, like the police line and all that stuff. We've been just trying to patch what we have, but
But now we're buying, we're not leasing, we're purchasing.
So I think we really need a schedule and a fixed kind of capital amount for the vehicles, and I'm sure we're off where we need to be on that too.
We need to
did-
start somewhere. This is,
Yeah.
my thought is that, like, we're, like you said, we're stuck on this number, we have this day under 2%, whatever. And so this year we're looking at, just for discussion's sake, we're looking at giving everybody a 4%, right, raise. If we did these things on a regular basis, right, and so everybody gets a smaller percentage raise every year, then we wouldn't be doing these big chunks of raises, right? 4 or 5% or 6% raises. We spread it out over time. So like this year you get 2%, next year you get 2%, next year you get 2%, you build it in, then that 2% tax increase isn't so unfathomable, because we're building it up over time. Like with the roads, you put in 150, and then the next year, well, that's already built in there. So a 2%, when we're trying to get to that 2%, it becomes less.
Yeah.
This
So
is a
you're
little bit-
building up.
This is a little bit of post.
So let me.
It builds up
Well,
over
I just-
time.
I mean, obviously, whenever we'll give the public an opportunity to speak to this, but to Dan's idea, how does, we'll go around the table, how do you feel about it? We had a tax rate of 4.7,
4.77.
yeah. versus
You know,
2.7.
I. If we,
And let me just consider the fact, or share that, again, just to keep in mind, and so everybody is aware. If you look at your tax bill, 7 to 8% of it is town tax,
I'm aware of that.
Yes.
right? So. and
Get
then-
that pie chart out. Part.
Yeah.
Yes, I got
we're-
it.
we'll-
Pie charts.
We'll have charts for the December 5th meeting. That would be great.
Yep.
If you don't want to do it, I can do it. The other thing is, if we frame it in a way you know, it's only $1 per 1,000, but it's an investment in our community's future and safety. That everybody's complaining about the roads, and here is a way we can all pitch in together.
Right. So you're in favor,
I
essentially, of doing that.
would like to hear what my fellow taxpayers have to say. You know, I like the idea of presenting
Right.
the two options
Mhm.
and look forward to getting the input from my fellow taxpayers.
What's your position?
That's, I think, like I said, like kind of what I think Mary's saying, that we should have it at the 2 point where we're at.
Yeah.
Which had the motion in second. We're putting this out, which I think is nice at the end of it. We're framing this and we'll be part of the presentation at the public hearing, say, listen, we have something that is, as of right now, at or slightly above the cap. But if here's something, we're gonna have a dedicated amount of money for this, which we're
Right.
earmarking for the purpose of highway stuff and get that going forward. And we're telling everybody this is how we're gonna spend it. So it's a matter of giving
Right.
people the choice by hearing it from the community.
I'm not a no. I'm not a no. I really want to hear what the residents have to say. Dan's been, you know, I've only been here for less than a year, and Dan's been talking about this since I started, at least with me anyway. He's brought it up several times. And one of the main concerns that many of the residents have when you talk to them are the roads. And when is Main Street gonna get paved? And, you know, it goes on. So I really like to get some feedback from our residents, either by email or at the public hearing themselves. I'm not a no. I'm not thrilled about breaking the tax cap, but I'm trying not to be stuck on
I
it
mean, it's a similar.
as Dan has suggested, because we're not at 10%. We're not at 6%. Would I like to be closer to 3%? I totally would. We're gonna break the tax cap, but there's something about this proposal
You're presenting it
that
by, I
has-
mean, in recent town member, you're presenting it just like the school bond was presented to the community.
That's what I would imagine, but we're talking about here with this. Approve, goodness, school. bond.
Yeah, but
This out here would.
Minuscule.
Little tiny little.
It's a beginning.
The point is you're presenting something.
We're listening inputs, but honestly, I think it's, you know, do you want to actually pave your roads the way they're supposed to be? I almost embarrassed by asking the question. So, but if you want
Hey,
to.
just a question for Greg. Regarding breaking the tax cap. I know the tax cap is a guidance that's set by New York State. What is the penalty? I know there isn't any, but what happens? Does the state frown upon that if you do it year after year? I mean, if you do it once, are they okay with it?
No, there's no sanction.
I was gonna say, there's no timeout. They're not gonna put us.
You're not gonna get put in timeout. I mean, the incentive is, you know, they want you not to have egg on your face by passing a law, publicly passing a law that you're exceeding what they deem to be the maximum that you can raise. You know, the legislation deemed in 2010 or 11 that the maximum you could raise taxes.
I think what we need to avoid is doing it year after year, because that's what they really frown upon, because then it shows.
I mean, you obviously want to try to avoid it as much as you can, because it means you're keeping the tax increases in some reasonable measure of control and not spiking in any particular over a particular time. But it has to happen occasionally. I'm not sure what has to happen this year, but I don't, you know, the things that happen with healthcare and things that happen with unions, it's really hard because so many of your costs are fixed. Okay, in terms of compensation of employees, and those things go up at a rate greater than the state is allowing you to raise your levy. You know, sorry.
Yep.
And also, I mean, so everything, but also like what you said, when you canvass all the supervisors, the fact that other municipalities are coming at or below the cap. This is seemingly, you know, where people, the other municipalities around us, representing the public, that's.
Well, that's, I
value
mean,
judgment
the
they're
real
making.
question is, how are they doing that? Is it like, we're starting, let's say we agree to this 150,000 for the roads, right? And we build up on it over time, then that 2% taxes increase isn't so far outside of our grasp. When we start building up on these projects over time, it becomes less and less of a burden to meet that cap. But if we don't start somewhere, we're never gonna get to a point where we feel.
But to answer your question about how they did that, other municipalities have stayed within cap, is they're tapping into their fund balance.
And we've just
not only
built
that,
it.
but it's really hard to compare these budgets because on a per capita basis, our budget is, a third Bedford's. It's
It's hard.
so.
Except the
yeah,
services, except
yeah,
the services that the town provides vis-a-vis others.
That's right. Services and, some other bigger places have, bigger staff to work with in terms of shuffling things around.
Yep.
I don't know what you can
I mean, we're
do about it.
We're the fundamental issue that the town suffers from forever is the fact that we have a small commercial tax base, which kind of structurally puts us in a difficult situation, as has been so forever, but it's a beautiful community, that's the
I
trade-off.
don't know, it's tackle the commercial tax base, but we are, things are, we're a big place with, not a big population, so on. So you're just trying to go around with roads, and I think, for a smaller number of people, if you're a little place and denser, then the number of people who have to pay for that infrastructure.
We have
But I
first,
mean, our taxes are low. Listen, that's the, that's the other side of it. Our taxes are low compared to any other place except Somers. At least all the places that I.
Somers is lower.
Per capita.
Town.
Per capita, yeah.
count. So we have a first and a second,
Yes. Had a discussion.
and now we have to do roll call.
So roll call. Dan,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Rich.
Yeah.
Andrew,
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Ta.
Just to recap, the number is.
Yeah, so the number we're at 2.734%. We are $29,265 away from meeting the tax cap.
Seemingly, if we don't, there's limited notification.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I have, we're not done yet, sorry.
You have related to the budget.
No, I'm not with the meeting. I was going back to our agenda.
Okay, for the agenda, the next is polling the board. So then,
Right. I don't know what you think.
sorry to, okay, that's right, then.
Place for tots at the Vista Fire Department this Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The candy cane run is on December 10th. Parks and Recs holiday party is Tuesday, December 6th at Lewisboro Town Park at 6:30.
That's the lighting ceremony? The lighting party.
Well, where are we doing the tree lighting? Are we doing it outside of, okay, so what are we doing? What are the lights going on at the tree in front of the,
It's not a ceremony, in Cross River?
yes,
Yeah, that's not a.
it's not a ceremony. We're just providing lights. Okay,
And Borough Cafe is also stringing their tree up this morning.
yes.
Nightclub at the library is Friday, December 2nd. I think there are a few tickets left. And I want to express once again my gratitude for being able to serve the Lewisboro.
Thank you. Rich.
Yes.
Move to adopt Mary's. Thank you.
I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know that we did. Looking forward to a very happy holiday season for all. Looking forward to seeing everybody at the tree lighting ceremony and getting into the holiday festive mood.
So, South Salem Fire Department's at the tree and manure lighting too event, right? That's what was on the announcement. South Salem Fire Department's there.
Yeah, I think I saw something. I don't have the details of it, but. Yeah. Okay, so what I have is, I just want to, announce that there is a planning board, opening. Beginning next year, so if anyone is interested in joining the planning board. I've one person that's going to be leaving. The housing committee is also looking for volunteers. So if anyone knows,
Grant Advisory Committee.
Grant Advisory Committee is looking for actually chair, so we chair the committee.
Yes, people should take a look at that now, because
But basically, I'll say if anyone has an interest in any of our committees or boards, just send an email. That's not.
and because we'll move that forward at our organizational meeting, first meeting in January. So hopefully vacancies.
That's all I have. So,
Except-
Next meeting.
next meeting is a town board meeting, December 5th, 2022, 7:30,
Which
here at the
includes,
townhouse.
which includes a public
Which
hearing on
includes
the
a public
budget.
hearing on the preliminary budget and the tax cap.
Anything else for December 5th? Just those two things. Okay.
I think those are the only two.
I was hoping for a presentation of a proclamation on that day that I've been emailing about.
Anything else? But
Motion to adjourn.
Into executive session. I had advice of counsel.
oh, so we're going to executive session.
Or do.
So we're into executive session to discuss
Advice of counsel.
advice of counsel.
Yes.
It's actually just attorney-client. Don't even have to announce it. So, good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
How
thank
you
you.
feel?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone on Zoom. Good night.